Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 446. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Hey, what'd it be like?
It be like this.
The two whitest men ever.
I didn't even know where that phrase came from. I didn't even realize that was
I just hear people say it, you know.
Okay.
So, and everyone says it is much cooler than me. So.
Yes, well, welcome everyone. It's the DC Comics Podcast. We get together and talk about the DC books we read this week. Coming up on this week's show, we have Wonder Woman 18, Nightwing 123, The New Gods issue 3, Batman Superman World's Finest 36, Batman and Robin Year 1 issue 5. I think Matt read the question all along the Watchtower.
Yeah.
Okay. Zatanna issue 1 and Jenny Sparks issue 7. Plus, I have a Patreon book, which is Batman and the Outsiders issue 22. So that's what's coming up. But it is also Solicits week, and there was even some news beyond the Solicits as well. So there's some juicy stuff to dig into on today's show.
Let me just say, up until I got to a certain book, it was a very dire week of comics. So, yeah.
Really?
Yes. Let's just say I finished strong. It was rough.
I mean, I had multiple good books though. So did you leave all the good books to the end?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how it ended up happening.
Because I had at least 4 pretty great books. Looking at this list.
You also didn't read a question.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But still,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't have I mean, obviously there's been better weeks, but I don't think this was a bad week by any means.
No, I might be, a bit of hyperbole with the dire, but the books that I chose to start with this week did not make reading easier, because I was like, I still have a bunch to follow this up with. But they got better and I ended with a good one, great one, you could say. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see which books made you feel that way later. Well, question seems to be one of them, but I mean, we'll see what the other one or two are when we get there. But yeah, how was your week, Matt?
It was okay. A bit chaotic. So I had Monday off, and so starting the week with a day off. What was the rest of the week.
A lot of my like podcast and YouTube things were off on Monday. What was Monday?
So it used to be called President's Day, but since we don't have a president anymore, I'm not calling it that. So it is a celebration of presidents past. We'll call it that. So
I mean, you can still call that President's Day. It's just not. It's not President apostrophe S Day. It's President's plural day.
Give it time. But no, so they used to celebrate Washington's birthday and then Lincoln's birthday. They're both in February. So I don't know when. They decided just to give us a day off. That kind of cut the distance between the two. So it's always like, I think it's the third. Yeah, the third Monday of February we get off. So, yeah. So that kind of messed with things a bit, because it makes the rest of the week kind of drag. Because you don't have that day off. Like when we have a Friday off, say. You build the anticipation. But yeah, I just added for a weird week.
Yeah, I had a busy week. Sleeping's been all over the place, but partly that's because Tim was able to record this week after not being able to for like a month. He's still at his in-laws' place, and they're going to be moving to a new house, which they were planning on doing anyway, but the fires have kind of sped up the desire to just get away and go somewhere else. But because the in-laws' place has got more people in it, it's been tough for him to find time to record. But his mother-in-law is away for like 10 days, so we have been cramming recordings in whilst we can, and next week's going to be just as similar. So it's been a bit of a tight week on my recording schedule, but it is nice to finally record Summer Screams After Midnight again. For those of you who don't know, that's the horror movie podcast that I do with Tim. So we got the substance done and put that out this week. And then we'll have another month's worth of episodes, hopefully in the tank by the time we finish next week. So, yeah, just got that going on. That's pretty much it.
I always love when he'll come into the group chat asking for comic recommendations or if this was good. I'm the only one that's on his time, right? So you and Connor, it's usually when you guys are indisposed, so sleeping or working or whatever. And I always feel bad that I'm going to lead Tim astray, because we have very different tastes. So, I try to take that into account. But I forget what it was this week, but I was like, ugh. So I can go back.
Yeah, you and Tim need to stop being old men and just get on the Discord. It would really make everything so much easier.
I need less social media, Pete, not more. So,
yeah, but you could just abandon the Facebook chat at that point.
But then how will I know when it's time to record?
Do you know the only reason why I have not completely deleted all Facebook is because I need to talk to you and Tim. That is the only reason why it isn't any capacity installed.
You just made a mistake, my friend. You should never have told me that.
That is it. It's just you stupid old man.
That's me.
Anyway, yeah, so we'll get into things because we got solicits, but we actually have some other news as well. There is one thing that was in the news that is going to be in the solicits anyway, so we'll do the solicits first, and then we'll get to whatever all the other news was, which I think I've got all of, but we'll see. So we'll get into things, but we don't start with that. We never start with that. We start with the Kindle rankings, the list formerly known as the ComiXology Top 10. So we're going to do that first. Sorry, we're looking at Wednesday. They're mixed, as they always are now. Matt, what are you guessing for number one?
Let's see. Let me have for number one, Ultimate Wolverine.
Oh, that is correct. I was going to say that was wrong, but that is correct. That's fine. Okay. Well, there you go. That's number one. Number two is Aliens versus Avengers, which is issue 3, surprisingly. I mean, when I saw that, I assumed it was issue 1, just because it doesn't seem like the sort of book that'd be high ranking. But hey, number 3 is Uncanny X-Men. Number 4 is Wonder Woman.
Oof.
5 is The New Gods. 6 is G.I. Joe. 7 is Storm. 8 is Weapon X-Men. I hate that title.
They're just throwing words together now.
9 is Exceptional X-Men, speaking of throwing the words together. And then 10 is My Quiet Blacksmith Life on Another World. That does not look a Marvel or a DC. I'll just say that.
That is... What a different name.
It looks very... I don't want to say anime necessarily, but it looks... Does not look like something I'd be reading.
Yeah.
I'll say.
I don't even see it on the League of Comic Geeks list.
Well, I don't think I think it may not even be technically I think it's a manga
There you go.
rather than a traditional comic book. But it's made its way onto these Kindle charts. For the record, if we ignored that though, number 10 would be Batman and Robin Year 1. So if that's a comfort, then you may take it.
It's a bit of a comfort.
Yeah. But no, only 2 DC books in the top 10. A little surprising, but a lot of X books. I mean, actually, other than Alien versus Avengers, all the Marvel books were all an X-Men book of some kind. Because you had Ultimate Wolverine, Uncanny X-Men, Storm, Weapon X-Men, Exceptional X-Men. 5 X books.
Was it the 90s again?
Yeah, maybe the 90s again. And then Alien versus Avengers, I'm just going to say it, Avengers never ranks that high on these lists, so I think Alien's doing the heavy lifting there.
Yeah.
Well, either that.
Isn't that Hickman?
Yeah, either that or Hickman, I suppose, maybe doing the heavy lifting, but I'm going to wishfully think it's Alien just because it makes me feel better.
Yeah, the Alien fan in you needs that, you know?
Yes. You're looking further down, Zatanna came in at 13. Jenny Sparks is like, what's that? 18. World's Finest is 19. Nightwing's all the way down to 22. That doesn't seem right. That's I hope that's not plummeting since Taylor's left.
That's a shame because that was the book that turned it around for me this week. So
yeah, I'm really enjoying Waters' run on Nightwing. I hope he's doing okay, at least physically, to keep things churning along. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the Kindle rankings for the week. And we can move on to the solicits. So we are looking at the solicits for May 2025. There's a few things in here that we've known about for a while because they were announced a little bit in advance. But we're going to go through them. We'll see what's here, see what surprises are in the store, and have a look at the covers and stuff. So yeah, up first is Batman 160. This is the start of Hush 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other big Batman news that we'll do after Solicits for what's coming after Hush 2, funnily enough. But yeah, so we have a bunch of covers here for it, and the covers are alright, to be fair. I have no, there's some pretty nice ones in there.
I do like the yellow background one. That one,
yeah,
that one looks pretty cool.
There is one where Batman's wearing like a Superman outfit, but he still got his cowl on. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
This plot's going to get weird. I've got a feeling, Matt.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, we know this is Jeff Loeb. We know it's got Jim Lee and also Scott Williams on art, apparently. Maybe that's how they're going to keep this on time, is they've got someone else doing like half the pages.
Jim Lee does a splash page, and the rest is the other artist.
Yeah, he gets the middle splash page, and every other page is this Scott Williams fellow. Would surprise me. Would surprise me one bit.
Oh god! And he still gets behind.
I know. Wild. Well, we know that the next Batman is starting in September. More on that later. So that does tell us, unless this ends up double shipping, or potentially they might overlap, because I suppose they're renumbering. So
do you want to talk about that now, or wait till we get to Batman? Because I did some research.
What do you mean wait till we get to Batman?
So you're going to talk about Batman and that news after the solicit. So do you want to wait for what I found out about Hush 2 now, or do you want it when we talk about?
Oh no, if it's about Hush 2, then tell us now, because we're talking about the solicit for Hush 2.
So there's going to be 6 issues of Hush 2, right. And then we're going to get Batman in September, and then we're going to do an arc of Batman, and then I guess Hush is coming out in a part 2 in 2026.
As a separate miniseries?
Not even as a miniseries, as a continuance. And it doesn't look like Jim Lee's on the back half.
Oh, no. That's what do you mean that continues? Do you mean it's going to be in the main Bat book again?
So all I could find was that it said with the news that came out about Batman, because I'm trying not to step on it, right? I was like, what does this mean for Hush 2? Because that's what's next, right? And it was supposed to be 12 issues, right? Like the original.
I mean, I don't know if they ever told us how many it was meant to be, but yeah. I think we all assumed it was probably going to be a similar length.
So in the news that came out about Batman, it said, but don't worry, Hush 2 will continue into 2026.
Yeah, so either it must spin off into a separate miniseries that continues it, or they have 2 concurrent Batman books at the same time.
Right, and that's where it sounds to me like something got mixed up in the gearworks, and I'm willing to bet it had to do with Hush 2. So we'll see how this goes out. But yeah, it seems very, very strange.
I mean, it's not that weird, really, when you think like it's no different than like, oh, Morrison's got another 12 issues. Oh, we'll just give him like Batman Inc. as a separate book because we're turning Batman into something else.
Right, but we heard about Batman Inc. right into that, and this it doesn't even say if it's going to be like. If that's the case, then why not make Hush 2 its own thing from the beginning?
Well, I think that's an easy answer. They clearly wanted to be part of the main Batman book, but then when they decided they want to have a big relaunch, they said, oh no, Hush 2 won't be done in time. Well, we'll just pivot it off into a mini-series at that point.
Yeah.
Assuming that's how they're going to do it. That would be the most logical thing to do, I think. But
it was just the lack of information I could find out about Hush 2 post-Batman relaunch. It has me a bit concerned.
Absolutely. Hush 2 should have never been part of the main Batman book. It should have just been Hush 2 issues 1 through 12 or whatever it's going to be. But they've shoved it in here, right? What they couldn't have got some writer to do a 6-issue Batman story just to fill in the back little.
God forbid, give Zdarsky some more.
Oh, he's got a Captain America book that they've just announced. He's busy.
I can't wait for the evil Batman to show up in that to counter the evil Captain America we got with KG Beast.
Yeah, he's going to have a villain called Backup Plan.
Uh-huh.
I can think of another synonym for failsafe. That's the best I can come up with.
That doesn't sound terrible in theory. Anyways, so not that I was excited for Hush 2, but this kind of dampens. I'm much more excited for the relaunch.
I mean, I think this is going to be... I don't know. I like excitement's kind of a weird word for this one because it's not like Hush is this like amazing story. It's just kind of a fun romp.
Yeah,
Hush 2 could be a fun romp. There's no reason why it couldn't be.
Yeah, even Loeb has said that when he came to Batman and did Hush with Jim Lee, it was the excuse to have have Jim Lee draw as many characters as he could. So he was just, creating story around having characters show up. So yeah. Not that it was this fantastic story to begin with, but yeah. The news that came out about the relaunch this week definitely threw a curveball my way.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like all they've said is that Hush 2 is not going to be done in 6 issues. There's going to be more, and it'll continue in 2026. And however they do that, whatever. But like, clearly, it's not going to be in the main Bat book after the 6th issue of it, which is weird. It's whatever, but like, hey, they've made the mess. They have to clean it up. All right, next up, we have Superman Unlimited issue 1. So this had obviously been previously announced. This is the Dan Slott Superman book. So we have a new Superman ongoing alongside Superman Vanilla and Action Comics, which it's been a while since there's been 3 ongoing Superman books. I mean, I don't even know when the last one was. I mean, I know that obviously every so often there's been like a mini or a maxi that kind of felt like it could be like a third ongoing, but they never really felt like they were going to be. So the last, like, honestly, has there been anything since like when they had like Man of Steel or when they had like Superman and Adventures of Superman running at the same time?
The only thing I can think of is there was that extra. It was the Scott Snyder Superman book.
Yeah, but that wasn't like an ongoing, really, was it?
I think it was meant to be an ongoing. I think sales kind of plummeted it.
Yeah, because it didn't last beyond
big deal.
Like 8 issues. So
yeah.
If it was meant to be, it never really felt like one. Whereas this feels like they are launching an ongoing. It feels like the way they're promoting it, it feels like an ongoing.
Yeah. When I started reading comics, 25 years ago at this point, I remember there was the 4 Superman books because they would, there was this big story that went in between all 4, and it was Superman, Action Comics, Adventures of Superman, and I think Superman, Man of Steel.
Yeah. You're talking about Death of Superman.
Yeah, but they kept them going onward, right? So like in the early 2000s, I'm trying to remember what story it was, but there was a story that was wrapping through all of them.
Well, they all still go to the early 2000s. I thought Man of Steel was done by the early 2000s.
At least until 0304, because that's when I was reading those.
Well, it was around because when Brian Azzarello did his Superman story, that was one of the last arcs in Superman Volume 2, and then Adventures of Superman became the main Superman book again and went back to its original title, just to make the numbering confusing when you have to stop and like deal with it. But yeah, and that must have been, I guess that was a bit later. That was like 2006 or something like that. Anyway, so this is Dan Slott, Raphael Albuquerque. There are some nice covers here for this.
Yeah.
For sure. There's one with Superman and Crypto, which is very nice. There's a cool painted one of just Superman standing there with the cape flowing. There's one with bullets bouncing off his chest. Like just a lot of really nice covers. I
don't really like Quietly Superman that much, but this cover looks fantastic. Definitely reminiscent of All-Star. Has that kind of glossy sheen to it. The All-Star always seems a little bit more gritty in his art style at that point. This looks cleaned up, so yeah, that one looks great too.
Yeah, there's also a cover that has James Gunn on it, bizarrely.
Did you watch Creature Commandos yet?
No.
Okay, so he gets a opening blurb in the title sequence, so as they're showing all the characters, he gets one as the writer of the show, and this just seems like he's just trying to get into the comics now. Very funny.
Is he going to be the Stan Lee cameo in this new DC universe? Is James Gunn going to be popping up for all these little...
And what's funny is it's animated him writing, and it says, written by, and James Gunn, and it comes up like a character piece, but it's not like there's cameos or anything in there. So, if he's just showing up on comic covers, I don't mind. Because that also looks like Corn Sweat on there.
Oh yeah, it says Superman that's standing next to him for sure. And obviously, this is the reason why they're even doing a third Superman ongoing is because there's a movie coming out. Like this is all synergy. It's all that stuff. which I don't mind having a third ongoing. Admittedly, Dan Slott's name, as we've previously discussed, is not the most exciting name to have attached to it, but we'll see. But hey, moving on, Absolute Batman issue 8 is solicited. We won't spend a lot of time talking about a bunch of these, obviously, but excited. The book's been good. Want more? Absolute Superman issue 7, with G. Domenico on the art on that one.
That's cool.
That's interesting. Absolute Wonder Woman issue 8 is here. Still Sherman on art with Kelly Thompson. We have Absolute Martian Manhunter issue 3. And then, of course, we have Absolute Flash issue 3. I didn't look at it too closely because I don't need to. We're going to read it when it comes out. But there's a little preview at the end of some of the issues this week.
I looked at it. The art looks phenomenal.
Sure.
I didn't read any of the things, but just breezing through, as you do. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
No. I mean, it's smart they always put these little because if you're not like staying tied to the solicits like we do. It's nice to just say, hey, this thing's coming, and maybe it'll catch someone's eye. Especially in the digital versions where you don't have to pay for extra pages to be printed. Just throw a preview at the end. Why not? So that's cool. That's Jeff Lemire and Nick Robles on the art in that one. And we have Absolute Green Lantern issue 2 by Al Ewing and Johanny Lindsay. I am very much looking forward to that and seeing how that works out. We have Superman 26, Joshua Williamson, with art by Eddie Barrows and Eber Ferreira. It's an interesting art team. There's a really cool cover here that I kind of like with it's like Superman opening his shirt as you do, right? But it's in like a shape with like a little simplified Daily Planet logo at the top.
Yeah, it's very Art Deco.
Yeah. I don't really know how to describe it other than it's just kind of the representation of a building rather than actually being a building. But cool.
Yeah, my eyes are drawn to that cover first too. I mean, even though right next to it you have a Grodd wearing a Superman S, and I was like, oh, what is that on that cover? So ultimately drawn to the cover you're talking about.
That could be any ape, right? Or any gorilla, I should say.
It could. It could be, but there's Man Bat. There's that's it. There's not a lot of villains, so yeah. No, King Shark's there. He's more of an anti-hero at this point.
Yeah, I'm very distressed looking at Flash and Batman being nothing but red and blue and yellow. It's weird.
It's not good.
It's very
those just don't match. Yeah,
it's very disturbing. Very weird. So that's Superman 26. Then there's Wonder Woman 21, art by Gilliam March. Aww. This is
punch in the gut.
Most distressing. Still excited for the story, of course, but it's just. I mean, you know what? Give Sempere time. Sempere needs a few issues off to get the next big arc going. That's fine. And here's
Tom King's go-to.
Here's the big news, or one of the big news items of the week, is that Matt got his wish. There's a Supergirl ongoing, which I was also hoping for. I just didn't think they'd do it until next year because that's when the movie's coming out. But hey, this means they get to have a trade or two on the shelf by the time the movie comes out. We have Supergirl issue 1, written by Sophie Campbell and art by Sophie Campbell. Now, I am not familiar with Sophie Campbell. However, Connor said he'd liked something that she'd done, and I think someone else said to me that they'd liked everything they'd read from her. So, hey, this feels like it's a very similar situation to the Cassandra Cain Batgirl book, in that never heard of Tate Brown Ball, turned out to be fantastic. I'm hoping this is a repeat of that, where I don't know the writer, but I am pleased with the results and become a fan of someone new. Interestingly, going by all the covers, the red skirt is back, which I am very pleased with, and she's got her cape back as well. She's not in the jacket that she's been in.
Not the jacket look,
yeah, which I'm happy about. What I am surprised about though is there's a bit of midriff back. I was not expecting that.
Yeah,
but fair enough.
There's a nice Evely cover there, making it reminiscent of Woman of Tomorrow a bit.
Yeah. It's a nice variety of covers there. But yeah, Sophie Campbell's doing. But I'll read the blurb for this one because this is a new thing. Kara Zor-El has been a key member of the super family in Metropolis, but what happens when she strikes it out on her own? Follow Kara as she returns to her roots in Midvale, home of Supergirl. But how could this be? Our hero has not been back in years, and the protector of that town has been saving the day for weeks. Can Supergirl stop the imposter before they steal her fresh start in life? So this feels like we're kind of getting back to 90s small town Supergirl stuff, which I actually kind of like the idea of, to be honest. Because I think what I like about that is that it gives a chance to like build a supporting cast that we can kind of keep coming back to, and I do think that'd be something to be really cool. But having said that, though, we're not doing, the fallen angel Linda stuff, unless that's also part of this secretly. Maybe that's what the imposter is. We'll find out, but
could see, yeah.
But no, that's cool. I'm excited. It's another interesting issue 1. I'm glad that some of these books that we lost over time, like your Batgirl, your Supergirl, and even to an extent Green Arrow, even though I don't like the Green Arrow book that's out. I'm glad that they all kind of came sprinkling back in over the last year or two. It's nice. So, cool.
Yeah. I was trying to see what Ninja Turtles book, because that's what it gives Sophie Campbell credit for.
Yes.
And I can't really find anything. There's just there's a smattering of stuff over Ninja Turtles. So, and my dog agrees.
Yeah, okay. All right, next up, Batman Superman World's Finest, 39. Did you mean to mute before you did that, Matt?
I did. I completely missed the button.
Just try to say the next book and I'll just go shush.
Sorry, not you.
Yeah, Batman Superman World's Finest 39. Mark Waid and Dan Mora, because Dan Mora apparently can just do art on 20 books a month, despite the fact that every other.
I'm enjoying Gutierrez on the art, so I'm not gonna be mad that Mora's back on World's Finest.
Sure, yeah, I'm not gonna be mad either, for sure. There is. Yeah, I like that there's a cover here where I think that it's Batman and Superman walking in a subway with like a torch. It's really dark and moody. I kind of like that cover. It's nice. Anyway, then we have Justice League Unlimited issue 7, which has Travis Moore on the art with Mark Waid. So, Unlimited no more is what it says in the first part of this text. Keep in mind here that World's Finest and Unlimited are crossing over for a couple of months. They're doing like the bouncing backwards and forwards to have an arc quicker. Which, to be fair, honestly, is more exciting to me for World's Finest than just doing more World's Finest arcs. So I'm okay with it.
Yep.
I'm okay with that book just being more Unlimited for a couple of months. Then we have Justice League The Atom Project, issue 5. We then have JSA, issue 7. Which has a couple of cool covers, I'd say.
Yeah, I like the Hourman cover.
Yeah. So here's something new. We have Mr. Terrific Year 1, issue 1, with Al Letson writing and art by Valentine DeLandro.
Yeah, I like DeLandro's art, so that's cool.
Yeah, I'd not heard about this at all. Brilliant young inventor Michael Holt's life was destined for greatness, yet everything screeched to a halt when his wife Paula and unborn son were killed in a car accident. The Holts once shared ambitious dreams of using technology to help others, but after the tragedy, Michael retreats from society and sells Holt Industries to mysterious and craven tech billionaire Athena Prescott. The domino effect of Michael's actions set off an explosive chain of events that take a not-so-ordinary man from the depths of despair to the heights of heroism. Anyway, plus there's a present-day part of it as well. It says, in present day, Mr. Terrific continues his research into what's become of Darkseid after the events of All In. So, that part's weird to tack on. I will say that on its own, I do think it's a nice idea to give Year 1 stories to some of these characters who are not Batman, Superman, and so on, because, hey, these are characters that most people probably don't know the origins of, and giving them a nice fleshed out version of the origin is a great idea. I think a Mr. Terrific origin arc is great.
Yeah, outside the car crash that takes his wife and unborn son, I don't know much about Mr. Terrific's early life.
No.
Right? He just is always kind of, kind of see what you get. You get what, I can't even talk. He's what you see is what you get character when I started reading JSA. And you're just like, accept that and move on. So yeah, this is cool. I don't know who Al Letson is, but you know, again, this is the type of book to let kind of a new writer soar.
Yeah, I hope the present day part of it is nothing more than a framing device, that because I just think that this feels like it's something that could stand on its own as like, hey, this is if people want to actually recommend Mr. Terrific. There's not a lot of Mr. Terrific solo comic books to recommend. It would be kind of a shame if part of it is like tied to like the ongoing like stuff that's happening in the rest of the DCU. So, you know, just hopefully that's not too heavy, is what I'd hope. As Matt's off to fight his dog. Action Comics 1086, G. Willow Wilson writing, art by Gavin Guidry. So yeah, she's the next on the little the rotating superstar lineup or whatever we're calling it. So that is cool. And next up we have Detective Comics 1097. Tom Taylor, of course, writing with Lee Garbett on the art. I did see Taylor Blue Sky. This was a short arc that has Garbett on art. So I don't know if that means 2-3 issues or whatever, but interesting to see. This has some really nice covers actually. There's a really pretty sort of like yellow and green one with Batman standing on like a radio tower. There's a sort of really scratchy black and white one. There's a few interesting covers to this detective issue. But that's cool. And then we got Aquaman issue 5, Jeremy Adams with John Timms on the art. Which, you know, we got dolphin people and whatnot, or dolphin people, mermaid as well. That's the word I was looking for.
Dolphin people.
That's what it could be called. The New Gods, issue 6, Ram V with Philippi Andre and Evan Cagle on the art. Basically, every issue is Evan Cagle and someone else. I'm noticing a trend with this. Nightwing 126 is then solicited with Francavilla on art.
Hey, let's go.
Okay, consider me intrigued. Well, he did do what the flashback story, right? Or no, am I thinking of a different book?
No, that was in. That was a backup in Nightwing.
Was that the
during
backup?
Taylor's run? Yeah.
No. There was something more recent than that. There was something Francavilla did, like part of an issue recently. Maybe it wasn't Nightwing, but it was on something.
Yeah.
But some cool covers for this one actually. And this villain looks interesting. He's
pretty cool.
He looks like something like a villain that would be in the Wasteland in like a Fallout game, mixed with like the
looks like a Plague Doctor.
Yeah, Plague Doctor. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Like an Old West Plague Doctor.
Yeah, with like a sheriff's hat on. It's an interesting concoction. So fair play. Catwoman 76 is solicited, which Connor has told me has actually been pretty decent since the new run started. I think I was just guilty of not realizing it had switched to a new team, to be honest, until they'd already had a couple issues. Harley Quinn 51 is then next, and I guess we're doing a lot of Superman variant on some of these books because Harley's got a Superman top on in one of these variants.
I mean, I'm sure is the Superman's anniversary is in June, right?
Yeah, and the movie's out in July.
Yeah, so they're.
So maybe it's a bit early for it, but I mean, maybe they're going to. I mean, that said, though, they've been quoting summer as Superman, so maybe they're going to do Superman stuff all summer.
Makes sense.
Finally, actually, see when we get to Batman Day this year, Matt can't whine one bit because Superman got all of summer.
Here's the thing though. Batman Day is every day in DC. All right, how many Batman books are there?
It's one day in September, Matt.
Too many.
One day in September. You're conflating.
You can deal with the summer of Superman for. No, you can deal with the summer of Superman. All right. I've had to deal with eons of Batman.
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm simply saying that you can't complain this year.
Hey, I don't complain to you. All right, I just complain everywhere else.
I've definitely heard some complaints. Poison Ivy 33 solicited next. I don't know if you missed it because I think you were
Where's
gone
that?
when I talked about Action Comics, but Wilson's on that for
Wilson. I saw.
yeah. And then we have Birds of Prey issue 21. Sami Basri on this issue with Kelly Thompson. Cool, loving that book. Batgirl issue 7, likewise. And that is a really cool cover of Cass on the train listening to headphones in her bat outfit with Shiva in the reflection. That is a really cool little moody cover. I really like that. So that's cool. That's cool. Isaac Goodhart's on the art for this issue though, so I wonder if the regular artist is just taking an issue off, or if this is just like a one-time thing.
It says courtesy of special guest artist Isaac Goodhart. So yeah. Feels like that's what it would be.
So it's an in-between arcs issue, and they've got like a fill-in artist. That's fair. Fair enough. Fire and Ice When Hell Freezes Over issue 2. I can't believe this is the second Fire and Ice mini in like 2 years. I'm still shocked that that's happened, but fair enough.
Which I don't get, because I don't feel like they're like fan favorites. You know what I mean?
Like all like comic book characters, there will be a couple of dozen people who are absolutely foaming at the mouth, who love it, who are like, finally, Fire and Ice get their just rewards. But yeah, for the most part, people are just like, okay, Fire and Ice exist. Secret 6 issue 3 by Nicole Maines. I forgot this was a thing. Steven Segovia on art. Flash 21.
Still Spurrier. Okay.
Still Spurrier, and we still have this horrible outfit that Wally's wearing. So thanks for that.
Just hold me to my word right now, Pete. Right now. Just because I see Eclipso in the solicit doesn't mean I need to read this.
Matt, if it makes you feel better, if it gives you some more strength, I feel like every story that Eclipso's popped up in the last like 2 years has been underwhelming.
Disappointment.
Yeah.
Yes.
None of them have been that good. So
no.
Yeah, don't be fooled by Eclipso.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold strong.
He's eclipsed his prime.
Yes.
Next up.
Green Arrow. Say something about Eclipso Prime, and then it just didn't go anywhere.
Green Arrow issue 24, Chris Condon with Montos on the art. I mean, Montos is obviously an interesting name, but I don't think I will. Thank you very much.
City Boy is on the cover.
What was that?
City Boy is on the cover.
Oh.
So I wonder if they're bringing City Boy into this now.
Yeah. No, you broke up over Skype. I could not make out what you said at all. Green Lantern issue 23, Zermanico on the art for this issue once again. So that's cool. Naturally, next up is Green Lantern Corps issue 4. Adams and Morgan Hampton writing, Fernando Passaran and Claire Albert on the art. So that's cool. Yeah, I like that across the 4 covers for Green Lantern Corps, like there's so many lanterns represented, because the first one is Baz and Kelly, Teen Lantern. The second is Star Sapphire, Carol. The third is Baz and John. And then the last one is Cagle. So I like that because you've got all these characters, every single variant can be a different one or pair that's being represented. So that's just cool. Zatanna issue 4. Obviously, we're going to talk about issue 1 later today. But that's 4 of 6. And then we got Titans issue 23 by John Layman and Pete Woods. And then we got Batman and Robin issue 21, Philip Kennedy Johnson and Javi Fernandez. I actually did a double take there for a second because there's a Dustin Wynn cover, and it made me think of that book he did with Lemire. And I was like, wait, is this another one of those? Because I think there is like a follow-up to that coming that we maybe heard about. And it's just a cover for this, but that's what it made me think of, because I saw Robin in that art style.
Yeah, what was that book called? Was that Robin and Batman? Well,
there was 2. There was one was Robin and Batman, and one was Batman and Robin.
Okay.
If I recall correctly. I'd have to go back and check it to be sure, but yes. Batman and Robin year 1 issue 7, which is one of the best books that's coming out right now, so happy to see more of that. Metamorpho the Element Man issue 6, which is this an ongoing? This doesn't say final issue.
I think it's an ongoing. Yeah.
That is shocking to me, but fair enough. I mean, likewise though, Two-Face issue 6 doesn't say final issue either, so yeah, okay, we'll take it.
That is a horrendously when I say a horrendous cover, I don't mean it looks bad. It just
is this the first one where like the face is cracking open with the Two-Face coming out from within his head? Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Yep. And then speaking of nice covers, that so next up is Batman Dark Patterns issue 6, and the last cover for that, which is like a sort of scratchy building, but Scarface's face is kind of in the building. That's a really nice cover. So yeah, we're getting a Scarface story.
I like the one above it though too, where it's just a batarang in Scarface, like in his face.
I feel like the proportions here are a little bit off though, because Scarface's head is a dummy's head, and a batarang tends to be a like this makes Scarface's head look like it's the size of, I don't know, like a beach ball or something. And it ain't that big.
I'm sure they had to exaggerate some of the stuff to make it fit the comic book cover, right?
You could just make the batarang bigger.
Yes.
See,
Maybe it's a small one.
Simple problems have simple solutions. It's a baby batarang for what? For hitting children? What's the purpose?
Yeah, but I mean, you can't hit them with a proper batarang. It does more damage, but
Resurrection Man, Quantum Karma, issue 2 of 6. This is the Ram V book that's coming with an and RK on the art. That last cover, where I presume that's Resurrection Man in the hat. I'm not sure. But there's like a skull above him, and he's standing like he's in a western. Oh, it's a very nice cover. Very, very nice. And then we got this is the Vampires book, because Barda's got this is DC versus Vampires World War V. Just to remind everyone, if it sounds like I'm like pausing as I try to like realize what book I'm on, it's because all the covers are displayed really big, so I see the covers before I get to the title, and I have to like try and guess which book I'm looking at before I get to it. DC X Sonic the Hedgehog issue 3. Okay, and this has got Sonic characters dressed as the Justice League. So we have Sonic as the Flash, which makes sense, although it's weird seeing him be red. We have, I assume that's Shadow as Batman?
I would guess so.
Tails is Cyborg. Amy's Wonder Woman. Knuckles is Superman. And then I have no idea what the one that Green Lantern is called.
I'm surprised you knew who the pink one was as Wonder Woman.
I know that because I played Sonic Adventure DX on the GameCube, and that's why I know who she is and who Big the Cat is. But in Shadow, I only know because Shadow somehow has entered cultural osmosis because of the movies. But
and it's Keanu Reeves. That's the only reason I know.
Yeah. Well, it's also because he had his, even though I never played it, he had his own video game that was called Shadow the Hedgehog, so it was easier to hear about him. Whereas I don't know who this is. I know there's a back named Rouge. Not Rogue, Rouge.
Right.
So ask me to explain.
Which is French for red.
And she's not red.
Wow.
But she does have cleavage.
She's French. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why Tails is Cyborg. That feels like a weird one to me.
Well, you could have made Tails Green Lantern,
You could have done.
But yeah.
Or just any flying character would have made more sense than Cyborg. Yeah. By the way, did you know, I just learned this week and I feel really stupid. Do you know that Tails' like full name is a pun?
No, I just know it's Miles.
It's Miles Prower.
I don't know.
As in Miles per hour. Yes. I never clicked. So I heard it pointed out this week and it blew my mind.
Miles per hour. That's, you know what? I like a good pun.
Oh dear. Next up is Teen Titans Go issue 3. And then we have Peacemaker Presents the Vigilante Eagly double feature issue 3. Story consultant James Gunn, written by Tim Seeley and Rex Ogle. What a credit. And then you got facsimile editions up the ass of various kinds, so I will skip past those. Mad Magazine 44 is in there. And then we get collections. Catwoman, Volume 1. Who is Selina Kyle? She's Catwoman. I solved it. Pay me.
Got it.
So yeah, this is the new run by Tormey Grumbeck. So this is Volume 1 of that run coming out and collected. Then we got Batman and Robin Volume 1 Memento, which is the current arc that Johnson's been putting out. Weirdly, the cover they've got here, which is just a placeholder. I would bet you money this is not the final cover. It looks like a cover from like a different era. Like, I don't know what's going on here. But amusing to me. Then Action Comics Phantoms, or technically it's Superman Action Comics Phantoms. This is the Waid storyline. I'm scanning it to see if it mentions the Supergirl backup, because we suspected that might get its own
release.
Yeah.
It doesn't, because you feel like it would also have Tamaki listed.
That's true. It would have Tamaki listed, and I imagine if you work out the 268 pages, that probably correlates to the page count of the 12 smaller chunks. So okay, Poison Ivy Volume 5. Solicited here. That's Wilson's run. Shazam Volume 3. Where in the World is Billy Batson? That's the Josie Campbell storyline. Also, Tom King's credited here. What did he do? Oh, because the issue of Wonder Woman's included. That's what it is. Fair enough. Stuff that ties into Absolute Powers shenanigans that sort of snuck into it. Superman Birthright gets a new compact edition. So that's there. Authority Book 1 gets a compact edition, as does Superman Batman by Jeff Loeb. I'm scanning. Is that just... that'll be the first 12 issues, because it's 304 pages. That's what I was looking for. Just to see how many it was. So that'll be Apocalypse and the Supergirl arc will be together in that.
Yeah, Public Enemies, and then that one.
Yes.
So I know
Apocalypse is what they call the animated movie they based on it, which is why that's what that popped in my head for. Yeah. DC's Finest, Justice Society of America, The Plunder of Psycho Pirate. Gardner Fox and Jack Kirby. So this is a classic story. This is All Star Comics 13 to 24. I presume there was another book that did the first 12 at some point, just not numbered. Volume 1, Volume 2. So that's cool. DC's Finest, Wonder Woman, The Legend of Wonder Woman, which is Wonder Woman 306 to 329. That's a lot of issues. Well, it's tales from those stories, so I imagine it's the main stories, or maybe the backups from those stories. It's quite beefy though. It's like 630 pages, so it's still quite a nice big chunk of stuff. DC's Finest Science Fiction, The Gorilla World, 600 plus pages of John Broome, Gardner Fox, Jack Schiff, Sid Gerson, and more writing. This has got stories from Action Comics. This is early action. This is 183 to 196, so that's way back. Plus some strange adventures and mystery in space. So that's cool. I like that they do these though, because especially since it means like the single issues should digitally appear on on their service, or at the very least that this trade should be on the service at some point, so all this stuff's available. So
I'd like to know when this came out, because this is Planet of the Apes. This cover.
Oh sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, I see here. Action Comics 183. Planet of the Apes came out in 1968. Do you think that it was after 1968? Would they have gotten to issue 200 of that before?
Let me do my math.
Before 68.
5 years is 60 issues. So,
very good. Assuming they never changed their schedule, because obviously later on.
Changed schedule.
Yeah.
So I think this has to be before.
It might be. Maybe.
I thought you were going to give me an answer. So.
Well, just Google Action Comics 183. See when that came out. And we will wait for Matt's slow-ass computer to perambulate.
August 1953. But,
way earlier.
Right, but I don't know when this issue comes out, right? Like, Because 183 to 196, although that would still be 50s. So yeah, way earlier.
I mean, yeah, you said 1953, so at worst it'd be 1954.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rod Serling, you hack, stealing from comic books.
I doubt he stole. To be fair,
it is different enough. These are apes dressed as man. And it's not very Planet of the Apes.
Plus, I'm pretty sure the twist from Planet of the Apes isn't going to be in this comic. Just a wild guess. Yeah. Next up, Supergirl Cosmic Adventures in the 8th Grade, new printing. So this is one of those young graphic novels. Is getting reprinted, so that's cool. Does well. Supergirl, the New 52 Omnibus, Volume 1. So this is going to be multiple volumes even. 800 plus pages, hardcover. Collecting the first half, so it'll be 2 volumes in total, which it makes sense. It wouldn't have been enough for 3, but it's got Supergirl issues 0 to 20, as well as a couple of Superboy issues that tie in for a crossover, and 1 or 2 Superman issues as well. So yeah, basically it's got all the issues for the Hell thing that happened. I wonder. Oh yeah, because it would be because all the Red Lantern Supergirl stuff was in the Supergirl book, so it would be included anyway. I was going to speculate they will include Red Lantern issues. Maybe it'll have a tie-in issue or 2, but cool. It's kind of funny how many New 52 books have had omnibuses now, or at least had them solicited.
Yeah.
Superman by Kurt Busiek, book 2. 632 page hardcover. Again, it's nice that they're filling in these gaps of big chunks of time that aren't really collected that well. So that is cool. I don't know off the top of my head when that run ends, so I don't know if this is the end of it or if this is just the middle of it. But regardless, good to see. It's got Superman 659 to 675 plus 712, and then the corresponding action issues that go along with that. Nightwing by Tom Taylor Omnibus Volume 1. This is actually quite a quick turnaround to an omnibus.
Yes, it is.
For a run. So this is 600 pages, so it's a relatively small omnibus by omnibus standards. Probably because it splits into 2, I assume, and this just is neat.
Yeah.
To be fair though, they have definitely done 1,200 page omnibuses. I'm surprised that maybe it's just because they wanted to get it out so quick that they thought, well, it's too soon to do the back half of it, but we can do the first half in an omnibus. But anyway, this collects Nightwing 78 to 96, and then an annual and an issue of Superman Son of Kal-El. So, I mean, obviously the run's fantastic. I'm glad it's getting this treatment. It's maybe a sign of how DC, the company, or at least the team in charge, view this run, that they think it's that special that it should go out this quickly in this format, because normally it takes much longer. So I think Taylor should be proud, and that's cool. John Constantine Hellblazer by Jamie Delano, Omnibus Volume 2, which is just under 1,000 pages, collecting a whole bunch of stuff. 100 Bullets Book 3, reprinting in softcover. We got Absolute Wildcats, new printing. This is the Jim Lee book, of course. We got Wonder Woman by George Perez, Volume 2, reprinting. Again, thick paperback, 300 pages. A run that I would like to go back and read more of, actually. I started it once upon a time. Flex Mentallo, Man of Muscle Mystery, Deluxe, new printing. Shade the Changing Girl by Peter Milligan and Chris Bacallo, Omnibus, Volume 1. Man.
This is Shade the Changing Man.
Oh, sorry, Shade the Changing Man. It's because there was a Shade the Changing Girl book way back at the start of this show. There was like a mini-series, shall I say? But yeah, so this is 1,400 pages, and it's only volume 1. I'm actually, I remember when omnibuses were a rare new thing for DC, and now Shade the Changing Man's getting a multi-volume omnibus. It's actually kind of cool to see it, to be honest.
Lord, issues 1 through 50.
It's beefy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, cool. The Superman box set. This includes 6 softcover editions of beloved Superman stories, including All-Star Superman, Kingdom Come, Superman for All Seasons, Superman Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, Superman Up in the Sky, which is the Tom King series, which is a weird conclusion, and then Superman Volume 1 Supercorp by Joshua Williamson. That's even weirder.
One of these things is not like the other one.
I think 2 of these things is not like the others.
Well, the Up in the Sky was well received. That was it was the digital one.
Yeah,
came out first, but
it doesn't feel like it's in the same league as these other ones that it mentioned.
No, but it's more in the league than Supercore.
Well, that's just because Supercore is the start of a whole run, though. Yeah. That's weird.
Yes.
Anyway, I mean, I guess the hope is that people read all these and then go, I want to read more of this one, because this is volume 1. Batman War Games Omnibus. Oh, this is cool. I've never read War Games, but this was like one of those big, Bat family spanning crossovers that happened, because you had your No Man's Land, you had your Nightfalls, you had your Fugitive stuff. War Games was another one kind of in the middle of all that stuff it was a bit later, but it was the 2000s. So yeah, this is 1,100 pages and collects all the appropriate issues, I would assume. Because it's not actually that many issues as some of the... Like, it's 2 issues of Batman, 2 issues of Detective... Oh, sorry, no, it's got way more Detective than that. They're just they're split up. So it's mostly Detective Comics. Detective Comics is the bulk of the series. Because it's Detective Comics 790 to 800 and then 809 to 810. So it's about 13 issues of Detective, and then 2 issues of Batman, 3 issues of Nightwing, about 6 issues of Robin. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Fun. Yeah. That was cool. I like these things getting collected in nice, neat formats. And that wraps up the solicits. However, that's not the end of the news, because there was some stuff announced this week. And the big one, which we alluded to heavily earlier when we were talking about the Hush 2 stuff, is that Batman is launching with a new issue 1 in September, with Matt Fraction writing and Jorge Jimenez on art. So, interesting. I mean, I will say this, though. I really like Matt Fraction's Hawkeye.
Yes.
It's great. It's fantastic. The few things I've tried other than that from him, I couldn't get into. So I'm going into this a little bit, cautious. Obviously, Jimenez's art's not a concern.
Never.
Along with this, they also said, hey, we're redesigning his bat suit, so we're going to have a bit more of a classic grey and a bit of blue in the cape and the cowl and that. Although this art they showed off here in this announcement looks a bit more purpley to me, to be honest. But, whatever. Not so much the image at the banner, but if you look at the there's like a the sheet with the different poses on it, it looks more purpley to me. But they said there's going to be a new Batmobile. Gotham's going to have a new look. Tom Taylor confirmed that new look will also bleed into Detective. So fair enough. It is kind of wild with renumbering, and obviously they did it with Superman, so it's not surprising, but it's just wild to me just because they've kept this numbering going since the start of Rebirth, meaning that this is only the 4th time Batman is going to be at number 1 again. Other books have renumbered a lot more, especially Marvel have done it, a ridiculous number of times for some of their series. But they're deciding to do this here. They want to do this, and I don't know if there's a particular reason for it, because it's not like there's anything Batman there's a Batman movie's not due for a couple of years still, so it's not like they're tying into something like that. I don't know. Is it the 85th anniversary this year? Is that what we're doing? No, it can't be, because Batman was... Oh, no, maybe, because 40. Yeah, it might be the 85th anniversary this year. Regardless, though. Thoughts, feelings, what are you feeling?
I have to go on mute because my neighbors are out and my dogs are going nuts. So, I was trying to, I think it's quiet now. No, I like Faction enough. I think Faction did that Jimmy Olsen book that I really enjoyed. So, yeah. It's just funny now that like these names that I associate with Marvel, the Al Ewings, the Matt Fractions, the Dan Slotts are working their way over to DC.
Yeah. Chip Zdarsky's went crawling back, but all these other names are showing up. Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild and different. But there's a couple of preview pages even, which is wild because this isn't coming out till September, so they're way ahead on this. There's a whole bunch of preview pages in this article, so you can go check that out if yourself. If you want to see them. But yeah, so you know, they're being kind of quiet on like what the story is going to be, which it makes complete sense. Obviously, this will probably line up with Batman Day, which fair enough. That's a decent time to launch it. They could have just announced it later in the year. That said, though, this was actually announced as part of the Summer of Superman, which obviously it's not Superman related, but I think they're using that as a banner to just like, oh, we'll do announcements all throughout the summer.
Yeah.
So hey, they've got. I suppose the one reason they did this, although they could still waited a little bit, is I imagine they'll probably want to talk about it a lot at Comic-Con in the summer. That's so we probably would have found out about it at least by then, but they've given us it in February for some reason. Is there a convention? Is WonderCon in March? Is that maybe they're going to talk about it there?
WonderCon's in March usually. C2E2. Trying to think some of the other ones that they tend to announce things at.
Yeah, maybe this is like I don't know, because everything's been spread out anyway, so it's weird to say that we're going into DC All In Phase 2 maybe this year, but maybe that's what all these announcements are going to kind of feel like. But cool. I mean, look, we knew we were going to have someone new after the Hush 2 stuff. Jeff Loeb was never going to stay on and keep writing Batman. Yeah. Obviously, it's kind of messy now because like it's coming in before Hush 2 is finished, and Hush 2 is getting shafted somewhere else. But it's an intriguing team. I'm curious, if nothing else. It looks a bit fresh. The numbering is whatever. You know, still put that legacy numbering on the cover. That keeps me happy. And if you don't, I'll keep track of it anyway because I'm a sicko. So,
how do you feel about the newish logo?
The newish logo. I'm just looking for the,
because it's not unfamiliar. Right? I feel like we've seen versions of this kind of logo.
No, I was just scrolling because there's a clean version of it at the bottom where it's just on its own. I like it enough. It's got like a sort of some hard angles on it, but it's kind of maintaining what I like about a typical Batman logo. And it's got the wings angled up, which is what I like. But it's fine. Yeah, I have no complaints.
Yeah, no, it's very reminiscent of the Nightwing logo, and I just think maybe that's just the shape of it.
It's a little Nightwingy, yeah,
with the wings. So, which more Nightwing into Batman, I'm not upset with.
Yeah, so Batman's finally taken some lessons from his superior. That's all that is.
Yeah.
So no, cool. So yeah, new Batman. And then the other announcement, of course, was Supergirl, which we've already talked about. But there was another super-related book with the Supergirl announcement, and that is a Crypto miniseries.
See, I didn't even know that.
Oh, did you not know about this?
No.
Yeah, so it's a 5-issue miniseries called Crypto, the Last Dog of Krypton. Crypto explores Earth in the search of his family, finding himself lost and alone in our alien world, and with his strange new superpowers quickly coming in, Crypto begins. So it sounds like an origin. It sounds like this is when he first arrives on Earth. Crypto begins traveling the strange planet he finds himself in the middle of, always on the trail of his lost friend Cagle. Or maybe it's not. Maybe they're on a different planet. It's always possible. This may just be them elsewhere. Last Dog Crypto issue 1 will have a main cover by Jay Lee and variant covers by Distin Wynn. But who's the team on it? I'm sure it's somewhere up here. Ryan North and Mike Norton are doing Crypto. So
I recognize the Mike Norton name, but yeah.
So a couple of and it makes sense. This is just a mini series. I would never expect Crypto to have an ongoing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So that's cool. No, a couple of super books. And then there was actually one other bit of news, believe it or not. We're getting a Marvel DC crossover.
Cool, I guess.
This is the thing that's happened. It's only going to be 2 one-shots. That's the thing. It's not going to be some long, drawn-out thing. Apparently, the plan is to launch this before the end of the year, but because of all the coordinating, and I imagine a lot of politics about which characters beat up which other characters, it might take a while. So,
who gets a percentage of the page, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming they're both going to be mammoth 100-page one-shots, though. That's my guess.
Yeah.
So the idea is that Marvel will release one called Marvel DC, and the other one is going to be called DC Marvel, released by DC. Obviously, we'll review both. We're not going to say, oh, technically that one's a Marvel book, so we're not going to read it. But it's, okay. I mean, honestly, it's a fun novelty, but it's kind of like, now I don't watch sports, right? But is this kind of like when they do like an All-Stars game where it doesn't really matter? It can't really affect anything in the main stories in either universe. So it's just like, it's a bit of fun, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect anything.
I mean, as long as we get something cool, like when, Superman held Mjolnir, you know, like, we play for those big moments. It can be as meaningless as it wants.
I mean, look, if Hulk kills Guy Gardner, I will be very pleased and give it 2 thumbs up.
If that just became the thing in these big crossovers where Guy Gardner gets needlessly killed, as a Gardner fan, I would find that funny. Because he's the only casualty of the King Kong Godzilla Justice League book.
Yep.
So,
and he also didn't do too well in Human Target.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know. It's weird. Obviously, they'll have a bunch of names announced on it, but yeah, it was the recent Comic Pro Retailer Summit in Glendale, California, where Marie Javins, of course, who's the editor-in-chief of DC, and Kazawa-san, or whatever his fake name was, Cliff, or CB Kabluski? I don't know, Sarazawa-san. I'll just go with that.
Sarazawa-san.
They talked about this happening. So, sure, I'm sure they'll sell a bunch of copies, because it's a big gimmicky thing. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I find it hard to be that excited about it, because it's not going to matter.
It's just more pages for me to read. That's all.
It does sound too tortured by that, Matt. All right, there you go. That's the news. We can finally get on to talking about comics. So let's do it. Wonder Woman issue 18, legacy number 818. Tom King writing with Daniel Sempere on the art. So this issue is simply Wonder Woman has an apple. She's hanging out at the monument, right, which has been rebuilt by the Justice League, and she walks to the front door of the White House. That is the issue. And I'm not being flippant here because I didn't like it. I loved it. It was great. But technically, you could describe the issue as just that.
It's a counter to that issue where she fought all the villains, right? But now, being emboldened by the death of Steve, she feels unstoppable in a way that she's never felt before. She's walking in a straight line and nothing's going to stop her. And I love it for that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the word emboldened necessarily, but certainly determined. Certainly,
what I mean by emboldened is that because the tag at the end is that you got to remember it's the Sovereign that's telling the story to little Lizzie, or not little, but grown Lizzie, about it's being told in the past tense, and so when he says she was different this time, it was she was motivated by love. And that's the tag at the end, right? So everything she's doing here now, right, is that love for Steve, for the world, for her sisters, and everything. And it's just a very simple story, right? But sometimes those simple stories leave the biggest impact.
I mean, for me, it's just a simple idea that, not that she would have lost if it hadn't happened, but the idea that the second that he killed Steve, that was the moment where the Sovereign was always going to lose, because that was going to light a fire under. That was going to make this personal in a way that, like, he was never going to be able to, like, withstand whatever she was going to throw at him. And it's such an interesting thing that the last couple of issues, it's not really been Diana who's been doing anything. She's been with the kid, and it's been the Wonder Girls. And we flipped that because the Wonder Girls get one page this issue where they're dealing with the poop from the baby.
Yeah,
and
Lizzie in her dirty diaper.
Yeah. But yeah, this is Wonder Woman walking, and they do this great reveal where she gets up, throws the apple in the trash, and anytime there's a woman eating an apple, I have to stop and wonder, is there an intentional allusion here to the forbidden apple in the Garden of Eden and all that bollocks? But she walks across the street, and then you get the full page reveal that she's just walking to the White House, which, to be fair, if you know anything about where the Washington Monument is, you could have guessed that based on the trajectory of where she was walking, but it's still a really cool reveal when you just see her walking up to, because we know the Sovereign's in there, and it's this idea that he can't even hide in there. She's just going to walk up to the door and go in, and it feels very empowering. It feels very like, nothing can stop her. You hear the president on the phone, like, talking to Secret Service and, like, demanding things in the background as the Sovereign's just losing his shit talking to Grail and narrating. We get a whole bunch of obstacles that Wonder Woman goes through as the narrating happens. weapons. Ever since superhumans appeared on Earth, like, Secret Service have developed things they think can take down, super
I
being
love what
people.
the Sovereign. Yeah, I love what the Sovereign says. Incorporating technologies of scientists, both mad and alien. So it says like this, super crazy kind of stuff that we're gonna need to keep the president safe. And yet, Wonder Woman shrugs it off.
Yeah, she deflects. She ends up with there's a really cool page where like the missiles explode behind her, so we get this kind of silhouette with all this fire behind her. It's a really striking visual.
And the point, right? Like she's pointing right at us, the reader. With the and she looked forward and pointed her finger. Such great storytelling.
Yeah, but she's not pointing at us though.
No, but just the way that it's with intent. You can see the fire in her eyes, right? Because she's looking us dead in the face.
Yeah, but who's she pointing to?
Well, no, she's pointing forward. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Well, she's pointing at who she's coming after. She's pointing, and Grail like goes out to meet her, and Sovereign's not happy about that either. He's livid. But we get pages where they're just railing like a hail of bullets down on her, and she's like deflecting them. That's a really cool page because it's just all these yellow bullet lines. And she's kind of like, weathering the storm. And she gets to Sergeant Steele, who's just sort of standing there waiting. And he says, hey, we predicted you might do this, so we've got a contingency. Around the country, we've got Amazons and internment camps, and we have taken them out, and in each of these camps, there's a gun pointed at an Amazon's head, and they will be killed. One will be killed for every step you take forward from this point on. And Wonder Woman just walks forward, and he's all smug. He's like, oh, you just killed someone. Oh, you just killed another woman. You just killed someone else. And of course, we're like, she's got, she's done something to, stop this, obviously. And she's like, yeah, I know Batman, right? He figured this out. I know the Flash. He's already saved them all. Like, this is meaningless. And then she takes his metal hand and rips it off. And thanks him for not calling her a bitch. But says that despite his restraint, she's still quite angry. So he's left in a fetal position. It's most satisfying.
Like, the first thing that she says, she goes, oh, you have a new hand. Right? And then he has all that smugness, and then she grabs it and rips it off. It's just a great way it plays out. Yeah,
it's just it's a very empowering issue. It's just very satisfying watching her like go on a warpath and no one's able to stop her. And then the Sovereign whines a little bit how about George Washington betrayed his family.
Which I love, right? Because there's a lot of American myth making, right? And we get to George Washington, and the whole reason that presidents are supposed to serve 2 terms is because he declined to serve more. And his words were, I didn't fight George III to become George I, right? And so you have the concept of the sovereign, and there's this family that's pulling the strings behind that. He even defied them. So he's the only person until Diana that could resist the lasso of lies. That's another part of the myth making in America, that Washington couldn't tell a lie, right? There's a whole story of him chopping down the cherry tree and whatnot. So I like how King worked that in here.
Yeah, I've never heard that. I'll be honest, I really like this issue, but this little bit about Washington kind of felt a little patriotic to me.
Right, but not without cause, because I feel like it's the right kind of patriotism. Because it's about what the country, like the good of a country, not just it's good because. It's not that blind patriotism,
Well, I know, but I feel like the myth that George Washington could withstand the lasso of lies, something that only Wonder Woman could do, felt a little bit like, all right, okay, we're jerking off the history of America here a little bit.
I mean, as he says, he's the only person to do it in centuries, right? Until Diana. So I'm
not impressed by that though, because the writer just decided to put that in. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
this is trying to make George Washington feel like a more mythical figure than perhaps he actually was. It's right. It's propping him up in a weird way.
And again, I think that's the point that King's going for here is that American myth, right, was built by people like the Sovereign, right? There's all these hands. So the story we're told, and this again in this country, is coming to a head now in real life type stuff where they don't want history taught in the way that it actually happened. They want to teach people the myth of them, right? And then so to go back to the, you know, George Washington, that wasn't part of that myth, right? Of the him not wanting to serve more than the 2 terms, right? Because here this upsets the sovereign's family because that was the control that they had, right? So he thwarted that. So then what King can do here is he can blend that in with that mythology for a good cause, right? In that he withstood them because he was a different type of person than they were, in the way that Diana is a different kind of person, right? She's not susceptible to their corruption and lies. So I like that he plays with that myth making here.
Yeah, but the point you just made is that the sovereign is the evil one building things on myths rather than the truth of it. But him admitting in his narration that Washington was able to withstand the lasso of lies means that the building of the myth is coming. Like, I don't think it ties into the because the sovereign wouldn't want to spread that, right? This family wouldn't want to spread the idea that George Washington was strong enough to withstand that and be larger than life. If anything, they'd want to squash what he is. Right.
But remember, he's telling this to Lizzie. Right? And we're reading it through that. So again, I think this is Tom King being a bit clever. And again, for a history nerd like me, it hit. Right?
Look, I don't know any of this American history, right? Maybe it hits differently if you do. It just felt a little bit like George Washington was really great, so we're going to put in here that he was so special that he could withstand the lasso of lies. I don't know. It made me roll my eyes a little bit.
Well, and also if you look too, the bust that the sovereign destroys is Abraham Lincoln, right? Another person who had honesty.
Yeah, that's
as part of his trait.
That was earlier or later on, whenever that.
Yeah, that's early on. Is that he grabs the bust of Lincoln off of the desk, and he throws it onto the ground. Or he knocks it onto the ground, right? And there's a symbolic, because, you know, Washington or Lincoln was shot in the back of the head, right? So the back of the head goes off. But yeah, so, you know, there's some American symbology at play here that King's playing with.
Well, yeah, no shit. The next page is some dude with an American flag dressed like some knockoff Captain America. I mean, I suppose in general, I suppose the only thing I don't like about this issue is the pro-America stuff in it. And I get that the messaging here is like the better ideas of like being pro-America, which in the time we're living in is something that maybe some people need to latch onto. But as someone who doesn't really like any patriotism, a little bit of this was like, you know, Wonder Woman being like, oh, I came to this great country, blah, blah, blah. And she like plants the flag behind her. And like, I won't let that flag fall when I kick the shit out of you, knock off Captain America. Like that was just, I felt a little indifferent to that. I was just kind of like, you know, I don't feel anything for this.
Well, so, but I also like just the whole fact that this not Captain America, right? The way that he talks down to her and whatever else, and to me, this is also Diana. It's not just the rah America stuff, right? Because he calls her a girl, and that's where she responds that, you know, she's a woman, yeah, and she's gonna do this better than him.
There's other stuff in there, and like when she talks about coming here with Steven, and like that's why this place means something to her. That part hits a bit because I understand that part. That part resonates. But you know, I just like I get like I think it fits here much better than say some stuff that he's been doing in Jenny Sparks, because like it does fit the overall story that he's doing. But I am willing to bet you money that some of this was touched up and changed or rewritten a little because of, you know, the last few months. Like I think there was times since November where this could have changed a little bit before it went to the presses, and maybe got a few little alterations in what it was going to do. Don't get me wrong, I think that the story was the same. I think the broad story was the same, but I feel like a couple of these bits might have been touched up to be a little bit more hopeful in the idea of what Tom King wants America to be, which is fair enough. I get it, but
yeah, well, because that has kind of been his thing with Diana since the beginning, right? Because this is Diana versus the patriarchy.
Oh, for sure. But I'm saying that I think he's just up a little bit because of the real world. I don't care that it's always been part of it here. I'm saying that this feels like it's been just up a bit to kind of like address how he and many people are feeling right now, which is fine. Like I get it.
As someone that is sharing the feelings of Tom King, I would assume, granted he worked for the CIA, so I don't pretend to know what he feels, right? It worked for me, right? Because in this time, especially this week, people throwing around those gestures and stuff, and it feels like the federal government's getting torn apart piece by piece. It's nice that I can open a book and see Wonder Woman standing for something, because regardless how much I feel about the country, I'm still stuck here, and I need that spark of hope just a little bit.
Sure, I'm not disputing any of that. I don't think you have to go ultra rah patriotism to do it. And for that, this is not because it's America. I want to make this very clear to everyone. I think patriotism is stupid in any country. Right? Nothing makes me cringe more than a crowd chanting for where they live. I think it's stupid. I always do.
Oh my god! So you hate cheap heat and cheap pops in wrestling. the John Cena, hey, we're here, and then the hold for applause. That must drive you nuts.
Yeah, shit. There's nothing to it. I don't understand why people go, hey, they said where we live. Oh, everyone cheer.
It is one of those things like when like I go see a band play and they're like, Las Vegas, what's up? And my first comment is always, oh, he said where we are right now. We must applaud. Like, why does that go to most people? Why is that their first thought?
Yeah, I just do not get into it. And the middle of this issue, as great as this issue is, and I do think it's a great issue, does slide a little bit into the patriotism angle. And I get it. I don't even blame him for doing it. But I'm acknowledging that it did make me roll up my eyes a little bit.
I'm just thinking of you if you were into sports, constantly rooting against the national team. It's so funny to me.
No, our national team doesn't ever get anywhere in any sports anyway, as far as I know.
Let's just say the last time there was a Patriot in Scotland, it didn't end up well.
Who are you referring to there?
The one and only William Wallace.
You think that was the last Patriot in Scotland?
I mean, look, has there been more movies made about Scottish Patriots?
Because there's no been... There has to be movies made for them to exist.
Yes.
Oh dear. Anyway, I just whatever. Anyway, I'm not susceptible to the.
I understand why it didn't work for you, but for me, it worked. It filled that void of hopelessness for me. To be reminded that there are good things still. So.
Yeah, but I guess my argument though is that I don't think patriotism is going to fix any of it, which is why I think it's a bit hollow.
Yes. Okay. There's no man behind that curtain. I get it. All right. Let me have my feelings of peace right now.
Yeah. The flag's a decoration. Stop obsessing over it. Solve the actual problems. Anyway, then Grail's standing there and wants to go all one-on-one with Wonder Woman, but Cheetah's there to take on Grail instead. And Wonder Woman's like, you got this? And she's like, yeah, she's mine. And that is it. And yeah, the end of the issue is Wonder Woman kicking down the front door to the White House and making her way in, all ominous. And the finale of this kind of 3-arc saga that we've been doing since issue 1 comes to an end in issue 19. So, so as much as we ended up in a weird debate there about patriotism, the art is gorgeous. I think the feeling of Wonder Woman going through all these obstacles is exciting. I think it feels super empowering that she's able to do so, and it feels like the Sovereign's not got a chance in hell, and watching him squirm is very cathartic. because the part of this that I can relate to and would like is the idea that someone could storm into the White House and that someone wouldn't be able to do anything about it and actually get just desserts, which is what we get to read in the comic. All the stuff with the flag and George Washington, or whatever. I don't need it, but it's there.
I will say too that the reason that she brought Cheetah, right, was to keep Grail busy, because Diana doesn't have anything to prove, right? So their last fight was, this draw, and the Sovereign mentions but that was almost by design, right? Because Diana needed to get in closer to them, and that's how she got captured. So she get Cheetah and whatever. And so who knows how this fight would have gone? But Grail wanted the fight. Diana didn't need it, and the Sovereign suggests that it's because when she came, when she came off the island as Wonder Woman, she was the best of them already, right? There was a tournament, she won it, whatever. She has nothing to prove. I really like that point.
I like it, although I think I think he's wrong though. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I think it's fair for him to think that and say that. But I don't think Diana's the type of person that needs to have won a competition. I think she's at a point where it's not like she goes, oh well, I won that competition, so I have to prove anything. I think she doesn't have to prove anything in general. I don't think she feels she ever has to prove anything.
Right. I think that's what the King was getting at, through the Sovereign. But I do like it's that line where, I bet you think about this a lot. And it's I don't think about you at all. That I kind of like that.
That's what I'm getting at, though. I think the Sovereign's try to prescribe a specific reason why she doesn't care. And because he just can't understand the idea that she just never cares. Right. So, yeah, that's just where I was getting at with that. Yeah, it's a very good issue. It's exciting. It's a great penultimate issue because it builds up and it ends at the point where we're just about to get to the climax. Whatever this confrontation is going to be with her and the Sovereign, which won't be a fight. It can't be a fight. He can't fight her. I mean, unless he's got some tricks up his sleeve for the last minute, but I doubt it. So we'll see how that goes down next issue. I suspect a lot of dialogue between them is my guess.
Yes.
Well, maybe a lot of dialogue. I could see her standing there quietly as he tries to monologue his way around her or something like that. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I wonder what the president's going to do, and if if we're going to have to deal with a poop problem.
Oh, he's
someone just kicked away to his office.
No, he's gone. He ran away.
Oh, he ran away? Did I miss that part?
The last thing he says is that he's leaving with the Secret Service, and then he's empty in that last panel. So I assume he's gone.
Oh, okay, yeah. I overlooked that.
Unless she runs into him in the hallway because he's still in the process of leaving, maybe.
Yeah. I overlooked that last line.
Yeah, there's a very conscious choice in this issue to never really show the president's face. He's always just off to the side or whatever.
Which I like, unless you're making the president like a character that has to reoccur, leaving them off panel, in the shadows is always good.
That's a general thing. I think here it's got more of a specific point, though. I think here it's this idea that he's not important, right? Because the Sovereign's the one that's actually running things. The president is just this thing, so he's just off panel, or we only see the back of his head because he's not important in the context of the Sovereign's world. So, yeah. No, I like that. All right, what are you rating Wonder Woman, Matt?
I'm giving this a 9.
I am also giving it a 9. Bet you thought I was going to go lower.
I thought you were. I thought you were going to go in the 8 range. So, No,
it was an excellent issue. I just, some patriotism. Was a bit thick, right? A little bit of it's fine, but it felt a bit thick for a few pages there. Went straight from the Washington story to the guy with the flag. It was just a bit thick for a few pages. Anyway, Nightwing 123 Legacy number 310. Dan Waters writing with Dexter Soy on the art. So I dug this. It's an interesting turn for this arc. But basically, it kind of takes one of the other gangs and fleshes them out a bit. And in doing so, gives us a very different sort of flavor to the story, because all of a sudden we've got a horror sci-fi monster movie thing playing out. Because obviously we've had Nightwing interacting with the Teddies the last couple issues, and one of the other gangs is the Flyboys, who are mutants. this issue develops them a bit further, and we get to learn some things about them. So yeah, basically Nightwing gets the beeper call, right? Because he gave them all a button to press if they're in trouble. And things are a bit strenuous with the Teddies, who are kind of itching to like go out, and because there's more frame jobs happening. One of the Flyboys has been caught blowing up a facility for the Spheric company. I want to say OCP so badly, but yeah, Spheric.
Spheric.
So yeah, Nightwing follows the beacon, and it leads to like an entrance to like an abandoned underground facility of some kind. And a bunch of the Flyboys are lying dead. And we get a lot of cool little backstory here, which actually ties into some really old stuff. He mentions that because of the chemical weapon from like a Nightwing story in 2006, this was a place that was built to basically store the corpses of the people who died because they were still toxic. And this was just kind of where they got rid of them. But the Flyboys had been given this place to come down and like experiment and like continue making their mutagens and whatnot. But it's led to a lot of them being sick and dying. So even just like the atmosphere as Nightwing was going in, and we were getting like bits and pieces of this backstory and explaining what this place even was for, I thought all of that was really cool and intriguing.
Well, and I like that Barbara's like, there's nothing here on my map, right? And then she's Oracle. She has access to everything. So this is a deep, deep cover, hidden place. And then as her comms popping in and out, the deeper he goes, it really set the tone. Like you said, like a sci-fi horror kind of vibe. Yeah, like what's he gonna find in this? And I also like the idea that the Flyboys started out as just a regular gang. That the creator of that drug, right? He needed to sell more drugs, but instead of upping the potency, he messed with the genetics of the users to make them more dependent on it, and that's what led to the fly stuff, the bugs in their genetics. So that was a fun little take on big pharma, I guess, if you want to look at it like that too. Also cool touch here is Nightwing's logo becoming lighting up and being a big torch effectively. I thought it was really cool. It was a really nice visual of him walking in the dark hallways with this just beacon of light on his chest. So yeah, all that stuff was fun, and I think the interesting thing here is that by the end, it kind of made you empathize with the Flyboys. Like they weren't just like evil villains anymore. In the same way that the Teddies became more humanized when we found out that there were a bunch of teenagers and kids, and one of them, of course, got badly hurt or killed, and like all of a sudden, oh hey, we can't just look down on this gang anymore. There's like real people here, and when we hear that, these Flyboys, like a lot of them are just dying, and then some of them have went like feral, which is what happens. That's what attacks Nightwing is one of the big sort of monsters, and there ends up being a bunch of them, and he ends up running and being trapped inside with a woman Flyboy, which is a weird sentence. She's like a scientist, and she's kind of explaining that this stuff has happened. She's got like a little thing here where she, like every time there's like an S in a word, she says it with like 2 or 3 Z's. So reading her dialogue was a little... It was a pain.
Well, like it was a pain. It was just a little bit funny more than anything. Trust me, when I hate reading dialogue, you'll hear about that in Zatanna later. Don't you worry. But there's big test tubes. I was getting like Umbrella Laboratory underneath the Spencer Estate vibes from Resident Evil. There's a lot of that cool stuff.
Also, so you said the event. So you weren't reading comics when that happened, right? When they dropped chemo on Bloodhaven?
No, I mean,
okay.
I sort of started reading around then, and I did go back and obviously read a bunch of things here or there, but I never read like the Nightwing stuff from that particular chunk of time.
So I can't remember if it was the lead up to Infinite Crisis or the fallout from Infinite Crisis, but that was something that happened, is that the villains got together and they dropped chemo, the living chemical guy, on Bloodhaven. To
be fair, though, I think it's in Under the Hood or Under the Red Hood. There's a moment where Batman like gets scared because he looks over and sees what looks like a mushroom cloud coming from Bloodhaven. I'm assuming that's this event.
Yep. And that was that. I feel like they were trying to move Nightwing back into Gotham so they take Bloodhaven away. So at that time, it was, toxic to go into the epicenter and whatever. So I do like that Dan Waters follows up on that and gets the story out of it. This is where those, like you said, this is where the toxic bodies went. And so this made it for a spot for the Flyboys to, fine tune their drugs and whatever.
Yeah, and they were given this by Spheric for one of their own doing a job for them, and it turned out they were using them to frame them for this attack, which has made all the other gangs heat up and like want the gang war to keep happening. So yeah, there's a manipulation tactic going on here, and Nightwing obviously wants to expose it. And it's killing. All this stuff down here is killing most of them. Some of them have turned into just outright monsters. So yeah, but she's basically begging for help. So all of a sudden now 2 of these gangs are sympathetic in some way. Like they're these are tragic like people who have been succumbed to what's going on. And what's so good about it is that the bookend of this issue is the head of Spheric talking to Melinda, Mayor, Nightwing's sister, and saying, hey, you're doing horrible in the polls. This other guy who's got ties to Blockbuster's old gang is running for mayor and bad-mouthing you, and he's doing very well right now. If you increase our budget and give me the power to protect the city, then I'll be able to, revive your reputation.
Yep.
And it ends in this really ominous thing where it seems like she's given in and giving her what she wants. And it kind of mirrors what Nightwing said before. When Nightwing made his promise to all the gangs, he had a line where he says, I don't break my promises. And Melinda says the same thing. And the great thing in the art here is that they do like a split panel where it's Melinda's face, like starting what she's saying. And then for the part where she says the same thing Nightwing said, it's actually just a box on his like panel. And it's a really nice little touch because if you didn't remember that he said that, the art's making it very clear to associate that with something Nightwing said.
Yeah.
So really nice, simple stuff here. But I had a lot of fun with this issue. I think it succeeds in multiple levels. It succeeds in being a cool little, almost standalone, spooky horror sci-fi tale, which ties into some classic Nightwing stuff. And just is really good. But in this context of the larger arc, it doesn't fail that either because it furthers this idea that we're getting to know these different gangs so that we actually care about all the people who are getting affected by all this plot with the company and the policing stuff that's going on right now. So it did that, so it gave us something different, but also advanced the plot and made something have more weight and layers. So, just good all round. And obviously Dexter's art's great, and because he gets to draw some monster stuff this issue, he gets to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, even when Nightwing's talking to the teddies, everything that's cast in the shadows too. So he's playing with the tone early on here. Another part I want to talk about too was the when Nightwing's checking on him, right? Because the teddies are kids, and he asks how Bryce is. And the guy's like, well, how do you think he is? He's 11 and watched his brother get murdered by a cop. And it was just one of those things like, oh, yeah, these are just kids, right? And so it's Nightwing seeing how they really are, and this is why he's doing that. I thought that was a really effective line.
Yeah, because I think you forget sometimes because characters like Damien exist, but 11 is really young.
Yeah.
11 is super young.
And it's not like these are like teenagers, right? Where, it rides that line. They're making their own decisions or whatever. Now, 11 years old is still a child, but yeah.
Yeah.
He's Dan Waters doing some real interesting stuff with Nightwing.
Yeah, I'm digging it a lot. It feels different, feels fresh, and they keep adding new and interesting layers onto the story. It's giving everything more weight because the more of these gangs we get to know and learn, and it wouldn't surprise me if we get an issue like this for the other 2 gangs as well, so that we have like some sympathy for all of them. That it's a really well developed story at that point if we really do that. And maybe we will. I mean, will the Blockbusters really be sympathetic? I know that's a tougher one to buy, really. But they could reveal something that makes them more sympathetic. Maybe they all do it out of fear because Blockbuster threatened to kill them constantly. I don't know.
And they have that guy running for mayor that has ties to them. So, what are his ties like there?
Yeah. So that may be the gang that remains villainous just because they're attached to someone who was always a villain. But the others, so far, we've really developed some of them into being more than just because I think even at the start of the arc when they first said, hey, we've got these other gangs that are all at play, they were all kind of memorable and different, and it kind of sounded fun from the sense of, oh, we've got gang warfare happening in Bloodhaven and Nightwing has to deal with it. But it's even better now that they've been fleshed out and we understand who some of these gangs are. It actually is kind of cool. So, all right, what are you rating Nightwing, Matt?
I'm gonna give it an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree. It's maybe even close to a 9, but I think I'll stay on the 8.5. I'll refrain a little bit. The New Gods, issue 3, Ram V, writing with Evan Cagle and Riccardo Federici on the art, and I'm never mad at seeing Riccardo Federici art in my comic book.
Especially when Federici gets to draw these big epic things. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thing with this issue is how big it feels in scale and ideas. There's some bookend stuff which we'll get to at the end, but the main chunk of this issue is Metron is talking to the Chronicler, and the Chronicler is basically telling the story of what led to what's happening now, and it goes back to the second world, right? So Darkseid and that are the fourth world, right?
Yes.
Right? Just to keep me right here in this. Right? And we even get an Olgrin mention at one point, Matt.
We do! Oh my god.
I'm sure you popped for that.
If you think I didn't yell.
Yeah. So, yeah, it basically explains this story, and we start talking about these 3 gods of the second world, right? And how each one is different, and, like, one is the god of, like, wanderers, and is the more gentle, like, loving god or whatever. One is the explorer god, who like is kind of responsible for knowing what most of the universe is that we even still know today, and would inspire people to go searching things and searching planets and looking for new stuff. And then the third one was the one is the builder, the one who understands mechanics and machines and how things work and all that. And it's like, okay, this is interesting. And it's not a million miles away from some stuff that Ram V did on, let's say, Swamp Thing, you know, talking about the different, you know, parliaments and whatnot. So this is all cool, and they're explaining this, and they've all got their own name and all that, of course. But it's explaining that, okay, they kind of sense that their world was coming to an end, but they talked about how it talks about how the explorer god is the one that kind of led to the downfall of everything, because ultimately exploring, while it was noble in its efforts, ultimately it will always eventually lead to something dark. And like effectively he got infected with like a darkness, like some entity, right? The darkness within, and it took over and altered him and whatever else. And he kind of came back and killed the younger god, who was the nicer god, and the other one that was left, the builder. And I'm summarizing this here. Obviously, there's a lot of details that I'm kind of glossing over. But the interesting part here is it talks about how even before this, the builder god had kind of split his psyche into 2 things, right? 2 parts of himself. And when things were going bad here, and the god that had turned villainous effectively couldn't kill him because it's a god, but he kind of like molded him to the inside of this mechanical planet that he had built. That was one of the things they mentioned, is that he built mechanical planets. But he traps him forever in there, in the metal. But you cannot kill the ideas. So these 2 personalities, and again, I'm using that word kind of liberally here, these 2 ideas that he built in his head effectively leave and launch into space. One of them lands on the planet that would become New Genesis, right? And I thought, oh, the other one's going to go to Apocalypse, right? But no, it goes to what seems to be Earth, right? And this idea sees that there's life here, sees that there's cavemen or whatever, and builds a body, a human kind of, to inhabit, to come out and talk to these people, and effectively implies that this being kind of became someone who taught them fire, taught them basic things, and through different ancient civilizations was a prominent figure in multiple of them. Right, the idea that he was maybe a pharaoh in Egypt, and then he was with the Mayans, and you know, different time periods, and then eventually did die, and sort of realized what would it be like to die, and his dying kind of wish, he breathed his last breath of life into the idea that if his brother, right, the one who became the, what did they call it, the Nectro?
Nectar, yep.
Nectar?
He was Nectar, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But if Nectar ever comes to this world, that there would be something to fight it, something good. And he breathed his last breath of life as he willingly died into the idea of a child that would only actually be born into life if the world or the universe needed it to. And then that's what ties it into what's going on now, is that this is the child that has been born. Like, so he basically planted the seed of what would become this new god that is now the focus of all the story. And Joe, what's so funny about this is that when this story started, because it takes up most of the issue, right? We cut away to Scott and Barda a couple times, and we'll talk about that. But when it started, I was like, okay, this art's beautiful. This is the Federici stuff. It's gorgeous. It's big. It's bold. But I'm like, who are these characters? What are we doing here? And the hope always is, when I start an issue like this, and it starts off with characters that I don't know, is that the writing is going to draw me in, and that by the end of it, I'm going to be really happy because of how it fills in things. And I feel like what Ram V succeeded in doing here is he made this story feel so big and epic with this backstory that I'm very genuinely impressed of how much like I actually ended up liking everything that this did and like how it set up things. Now, ask me what these three gods' names were. I'm never going to remember. No, but that's okay.
but because he ties them to concepts that we easily understand, right?
Yes.
One was like the god of wanderers, and that was differentiated by the god of explorers, right? And like the wanderer went to those who needed it, but the explorer was always out looking, for things. And when it comes across this dangerous, what do they call it? Darkness with its own desire. Hold on, I'm gonna find it. Yeah, a darkness with a desire of its own, right? It's this almost living embodiment that argues against existence.
Yeah, I was actually kind of see when I was reading that box describing this, because they mentioned they're on like a planet on the very edge of the where the source like light hits. It's like just an echo of light at this point. I was like, is this the anti-life equation? Is this like stuff that's ultimately going to become what Darkseid wants, kind of thing?
Right, because but see, Darkseid, the anti-life isn't like against existence, right? The anti-life needs existence to occur. That's why it's the anti-life and not death, right? Because it's just subservience and all that type.
Well, but that's the thing, though. This isn't killing. Like, this is taking over, right?
This takes over. And to me, reading Ram V's other stuff before he was doing superhero things, this feels to me like this explorer is representative of colonialism, right? And it's that ever wanting to expand and go out, and then when you bring that back, you bring that darkness back, and what does it do to that society, right? So this, when it gets twisted by whatever this darkness is, it comes back and kills the god of wanderers, right? And it fully takes over, and then it imprisons the god of of ideas and tinkering and creating new things. So it's almost like saying like this dark need to conquer, right, completely uproot society, and then it takes those things that people build and uses them for the bad, right? Because I feel like this floating planet that we got here, that the middle god made, that split itself, I feel like this is where the main villain's coming from. There's a lot of similarities. So it feels like this darkness perverted this, and the one thing that stood out was the thought of what could be more that was from that middle god, the god of tinkerers. And then when it came here to Earth and became kind of the trope of God's gift from, so like it compares it to Prometheus, and Prometheus is famous for giving humans fire, right? And so basically it's this idea that it'll come back when this darkness reaches here, and I made a loss of my own words here, but I fully get what Ram V's doing, playing with these types. And again, we don't know the names, but the story is very familiar if if you follow different mythologies and their stories as it builds down,
No, it felt like it had this sort of grand sense of scale to it that was very elegant in a way that some books try to feel that way and fail. I don't think anything about this flopped.
Mm-mm.
So then we go to Scott and Barda, right? They're at Oberon's place, and he's trying to help them find the baby, and he's like, hey, like I tried to make this teleporter to like sort of snatch Scott from wherever he is to help him escape. Never quite worked though. However, we can use it to teleport to somewhere where there's a lot of source like energy happening, and mentions that a few days ago his source computer scanner thing was lighting up like a Christmas tree. My favorite part of all this, though, is that he keeps saying things that are pissing off Barda, and Barda wants to strangle him, and Scott has to hold her back. I don't know. I was getting a chuckle out of that.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all very cool, and then when it kind of comes back round to the present day stuff, and we've had like the end of the backstory, and it kind of says that hey, like this baby was found by an archaeologist. So I think we were assuming the couple that was with the baby before.
Yeah.
Oh no! Did we know they just found it? I think maybe they mentioned that. No.
Yeah, we know that they found it.
Yeah, we did.
But like they had just lost a baby themselves, so they saw it as divine intervention, and that goes in to what this being represents. Being a Prometheus and whatnot.
It's also a little Superman as well, because
or Moses, right?
Well, yeah, obviously. But I mean, specifically the idea that the Kents can't have a kid, and then, a kid falls out the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here he is. So, yeah, I mean, we go back to like the present day stuff, though. Obviously, one of the things that's been happening is that Maxwell Lord has been trying to get his hands on this baby, and he's got a team of men who are going to just blow up the car, the taxi, the kid and the adults are in. And it's like, we don't care who else we kill. We know the baby will survive. We want the baby. Just do it. And the end of the issue is Mr. Miracle lands in the taxi. They've clearly found where the baby is. He deflects the missile, just standing there in the car. And the final page is him smirking, saying, "Oh, you boys are in so much trouble." As Barda just like Hulk rams their truck.
Yep.
It's Joe, what I love about this is that you spend all this issue building like how big the scale is, and everything about the backstory feels so grand and epic and ethereal and like larger than things we can comprehend. But then the people who are going to save the baby are the greatest like comedy duo of a couple in comic book history. It's Barda and Mr. Miracle, and it just feels there's something really nice and endearing about. They're the ones who are going to save the new god and possibly whatever this baby can do to fight off this darkness that might be coming. I don't know. I really like that. I like it a lot. Good.
Yeah, you guys are in so much trouble, and the smile. It's just like a slight smirk, Yeah,
that's all it is. That's all you need.
Yeah.
So it also worth mentioning a couple pages. There's like a bit of fighting at the start on Apocalypse, and there's a couple of pages at the towards the end as well. Where Carrick Dean is the one who's kind of defeated what was left of Darkseid's people in Apocalypse. We see Granny Goodness on the run because they're rounding up anyone who worked for Darkseid and was loyal to him, and says, "Hey, we're going to New Genesis next." So, so that's going on too.
Yeah, I mean, if they put a whooping on Darkseid like that, or not Darkseid, on Apocalypse. And it was all kind of off panel. These guys are packing major heat.
I mean, I don't think if Darkseid was around, this would be going quite the same way.
No, and I feel like the reason why they could do that is they felt the vacuum, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes as they progress things. But I mean, again, it's weird to say a villain like taking over all of Darkseid and Apocalypse, and that feels so big and powerful, like when you say that out loud. But it's by far the thing in the issue that I remembered the least after I read it, because everything else was so much more like big and exciting. Which is not to say this is bad. It's just that everything else is so good that.
Yeah, I love when Ram V does this, when he plays with ideas. Like the idea of ideas is like right up his realm, and it felt like when we're going over the origin story of these three gods, it felt very reminiscent of the stuff we did in Swamp Thing when we got to Trinity, right, and the idea of the nuclear age and whatnot. And I guess when he's in that groove, he's tough to beat, and this is very much in that groove. So it was very very excited to read New Gods this week.
Yeah. Obviously, all the Federici art's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think I particularly like the sort of the two rockets of the two ideas leaving the mechanical world, and like, you know, the one landing on what is clearly Earth once it gets going. I think that panel is kind of great, and it's really interesting because that's where it picks back up again after we've been with Scott and Barder for a couple of pages, you know, after the interlude, if you will. But everything with all these gods and what they're doing feels so grand, in part because of that art and just how I mean, I've said ethereal and otherworldly a bunch of times, but it really does have that vibe to it. It's really quite special.
I wonder what became of that piece on New Genesis, right? Because if the one that landed on Earth became this kind of you know, this idea of God's gift, what happened on New Genesis?
Well, if the one on Earth became effectively a living God who was able to guide humanity and advance humanity as best it could for centuries, it seems like, then, like, is the society that we currently have on New Genesis, like, in the same way that can that thank whatever landed there, like whatever that piece became? I don't know, or maybe not. Maybe there's something a bit different with that. What that's because, you know, it was like his mind was split in two. The other side of the mind might have been something very different in how it would work. Yeah,
and that's what I want. I wonder what went over there and how it affects, you know, High Father and all of them. You know, if it did at all, right? Or if this is a new God that we didn't realize, because it is from the second world, right? And we're at the fourth world, so
yeah, I would assume this would predate High Father.
Right, but didn't have any influence on High Father.
Like, I mean, it may have done.
Influence, yeah.
But predates High Father as far as I'm aware. So, fascinating ideas. It was just exploring the concepts and just having fantastic art to like accompany those concepts was just like a treat to read. And then the actual forward moving plot of having Barda and Scott come in to save the baby was an exciting ending to leave it on. So. What are you rating New Gods, Matt?
I'm giving this a 9.
I can't really fault it. 9 out of 10, I agree. That is what it is. Batman, Superman, World's Finest, issue 36. Mark Waid writing with Adrián Gutiérrez on the art. So this issue continues the Aquaman story that was set up last time. With the Floronic Man being revealed at the end as the culprit behind the spread, the virus that's going on in Atlantis. Meanwhile, the ruler of the Trident people, the Tritonists.
Yeah.
he's a bit of a little bitch, and then at the end of the issue, when he sees Superman kissing his wife, he gets really upset. But that's literally the cliffhanger of this issue, is that he's going to be feeling cucked.
I'm starting to feel the wear on this book in this issue, just with a lot of the I don't know. I usually love Aquaman stuff, but these mer people, it ain't working for me, you know.
I feel like I think I like this arc more than the last like few things we've done in this book, just because there's some fun stuff, and I like the build up to Swamp Thing showing up with Batman being like, because Robin says, "Do you know anyone who can talk to plants?" And he's like, "As a matter of fact, Robin, I do." You know, enter Swamp Thing. I really like the art on the page where he explains the backstory of the Floronic Man, because it's like an old school art style, as if it's an old comic. That was pretty cool. I think the whole we have to like ready the troops and we might go to war with this other faction. That stuff, I was, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that fussed. The whole thing with Superman kissing his mermaid ex. That was just kind of weird. I'm like, okay, this is early days, so I guess this is before him and Lois are actually like a proper couple. So fine, whatever. But I don't know. It was a bit strange. I'm. Yeah.
I feel it's more like Waid throwing stuff against the wall. I'm like, all right, cool. You know, it'd be cool to draw a Atlantis war with mer people. You know, Gutiérrez, give me this.
I feel like it's less throwing stuff against the wall, and I feel like this book's an excuse for Waid to bring things in that he remembers reading when he was a kid. and he remembers this character, this love interest. So we have to get like a little arc that she can pop up in. He remembers some of these other Atlantis characters, so we get some of them or whatever. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like he keeps having excuses to just pull obscure things that he's read from his past into the books, which is fine. But it definitely, like, this book definitely feels like it is Waid's sketchbook of like just different ideas that aren't as developed as like some of his better stuff that he's written. Yeah,
for sure. And you read this and you know, Batman and Robin year one back to back, your danger getting whiplash.
It's so wild those books keep coming out the same week every month, because I always read this first. Just because I go up to Batman and Robin, you know, it's like it's an arc up.
Well, and just the stuff here with Superman and Aquaman and that whole thing of he can't help Arthur because the people already don't trust Arthur, so we can't have an outsider. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm tired of the Atlantean politics like this. You know, it's well tread ground. I expect Waid to do something maybe a little bit different, a little more interesting, you know. And yeah, so this was just kind of like like, you know, it's fine. But I do appreciate Gutierrez's art though, because again, drawing all this stuff, it looks great. Like you mentioned, the Floronic Man stuff, the coloring's different, the inking's a little bit, you know, given that old school vibe. And yeah, just like again, the mermaid stuff though, it's killing me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the art's pretty solid. I think Gutierrez does a solid job, right? It very, very much emulates what Mora's art style is on the book typically. You know, Swamp Thing showing up's cool. I like Robin's like the diver mask that he's got. Yeah, because Batman's is just like he's just Batman, but he's got like a sort of glass bit over his mouth. Robin's got like a full head thing with like two like hoses coming out of his breather,
like an old school dive suit kind of.
Yeah. So that's I think that's pretty cool, but you know, I like the other stuff is just kind of like it's fine. Like it feels like I almost have nothing to say because it's just fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's very with nice art, and I'm not mad I read it. It was a quick, easy enough read, and I will read it again next month, and I'm sure it'll be more fine. Which is needless to say. Not a whole lot of interesting things to say about it. I guess I'm mildly curious how much of a fit the Aqua dude's going to show because his wife was kissing Superman, because he looks pretty upset in that last little panel on the page.
He's pretty upset's an understatement. He's very mad.
I think he's going to try and kill Superman.
Oh yeah, I do.
It may fail miserably, of course, as he probably would, but I think he's going to try, as fruitless as it may be. So. Yeah, just rate it, Matt. Let's put it out of its misery.
7 out of 10.
I think your tone felt a bit more negative than that, to be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fine. I just, you know, on weeks where I have stacked books like this, reading something like this upsets me a little bit more.
Sure.
Because at least if it's bad, we can have a good conversation about it. But when it's just like, I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, this is a 6. Okay. That's fine.
All right, 6.5 then. I'll lower mine a tad.
You're such a spineless Matt.
No, I have too much spine. Okay.
No, the spine's fine. It's just all the other matter in the back that's the too much bit.
Was that a fat joke?
It was kind of a fat joke. I don't know.
Okay, gotcha.
Your spine doesn't get bigger or smaller. It's everything else that increases.
Unless you're Andre, but Andre had a weird body thing.
Like, if your spine's getting bigger, you've got a condition, okay?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Anyway, that was the world's finest. What a review that was. It was so in depth and full of nuance. All right. Batman and Robin, Year 1, Issue 5. Mark Waid writing with Chris Samnee on the art. The difference between this and World's Finest is astonishing, because this was phenomenal.
You can tell when Waid is inspired. It comes across the page. He has Bruce use Wayne as a verb.
I popped at that. I thought that was great.
Me too. Yeah, because I had to go back and read it, and I was like, is this a miss? Like, was this supposed to be another word? And then I get down to you get to the point where Alfred points it out, and you're like, oh god, okay, clever. I like it.
This was so good, and it's yeah. I think Shazam was my favorite thing Waid had done since returning to DC. I think it's now number 2. I think this is number 1 and Shazam's number 2. I think just he nails the relationship with Bruce and Dick. You know, the issue starts with Dick apparently got thrown out in the first day, not permanently, but he basically got pulled into the principal's office because he argued with a teacher. And we find out that the argument he had with the teacher is that the teacher referred to the class, because it was being rowdy, as acting like a circus. And Dick took umbrage with this term and referred to it as a slur. And I think Bruce is like, it's not a slur, Dick, it's just an expression. He's like, well, you've never lived in a circus. Yeah. You don't get to make that distinction. And I'm like, you know what, he's got a point. Like, Dick's got more of a right to say this than he does.
Well, we say that, but when you understand what a circus is, it has to be super organized, right? And everyone has a part to play, but it feels like it's zany and free flowing. So I understand where Dick's coming from, but yeah, Bruce having the time and place argument with him, it feels very spot on for this age. Yeah.
Also just the idea that, okay, even if he has slightly a point in some way, you can tell that he was latching onto it because it's an excuse to ruin all the school ideas and just
exactly. You know,
so he's playing the game. And even when he goes with Batman to see Gordon with the signals on, Gordon's like, oh, I want to talk without the child, and Batman's like, of course, Robin, wait over there. So he's like just slouching over at the rail, just looking pissed off that he's been left out. As Batman and Gordon have a chat, and Batman is kind of aware that Gordon was hiding a file from Batman, and Gordon just asks him to trust them and focus on what they need. But they're talking about Grimraldi and the fact that Grimraldi's using someone who can mimic other people. So we know it's Clayface, of course, but they don't really have that concept yet. But he does say that they've got a name, and it's not Carlo. It's I'm assuming this is what, like, the Golden Age Clayface, maybe, or
I'm guessing, because it's not Basil Carlo. It's
I didn't recognize it, but I assume it is been taken from like a classic version of Clayface. So it sends Robin home because he has to go be Bruce Wayne for a bit. But it turns out he's being Bruce Wayne because he suspects that this rich guy who's leaving town and throwing this party, he just like sold off all of his company, and it's kind of weird and didn't make much sense. So he suspects that it's foul play, and that this imposter who can mimic people is actually pretending to be this guy, and that's why he's at the party. So he keeps an eye on him. He mingles a little bit, but then he's also there as Batman after the party ends, and he's like, yeah, this guy's so smug that he would keep up the act of being the happy host even when no one's looking, but he immediately changes his demeanor. It's a very specific thing that he points out, but I generally liked it because it was a nice little, because we didn't really know until this point why Bruce was at this party. It's this moment when like this guy like says bye to the last guest, and you see Batman's shadow in the background, and you're like, oh, he's here because this is Clayface. Yep. And it's like a moment of excitement.
Looks like Oswald's there too. If you look on the top of that big panel, there's a guy in a top hat, right? Kind of hunched over.
Oh yeah, I see him. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. You know,
it makes sense.
So it's like all the mucky mucks of Gotham, right? So yeah.
No, that's fun stuff.
So real quick, so I just pulled up Clayface, right, through Google. He's actually the second Clayface, right? The first was created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger in Detective Comics 40. So pretty soon. It was from June 1940. And the second one was in the 50s, and his name was Matthew Hagen, a treasure hunter given vast shape-shifting powers and resiliency by exposure to a pool of radioactive protoplasm. So again, Mark Waid digging deep here. But for all intents and purposes, this feels like the Clayface that we're all famous with.
Yeah, that
familiar with when we get there.
Yeah, that first one was just over a year after Batman debuted, so that was fairly early.
Yeah, which I did not know. I did not realize that that's how long the Basil version of Clayface has been around, and his name is a send up to Boris Karloff and Basil Rathbone, right? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Turns out this guy, the real guy, is dead in the closet, and that's why they're doing this whole "I'm leaving town and moving to Italy" plot that he's talking about. So Batman shows up behind him and says, "Over, Hagen." You know, it's classic Batman. And I love this entire like series of set pieces that happened here, because Batman like chases him and he's hiding in like the closet behind the mirror, and he fires out a gun at Batman. And during this whole time, Alfred's trying to contact him because Robin snuck out with the bike and is out on his own doing whatever. But Batman like has to, you know, try and fight Clayface, right? And he does a whole thing with the Batarang with the zip line attached, where he like, you know, lassos it around his leg. But to his shock, and I love the art here, like Batman's just like, what? Because the foot just gets cut off and there's like no blood because it's Clayface. No. And he's like, what the hell? He's like, a prosthetic? Like, what? That doesn't make sense. And then what's even weirder, of course, to Batman is that he just like has the foot reattach, and he's like, wait, huh? Like,
Samnee's face for Bruce here is so good.
It's just wonderful. It's like this is why we do get like every so often you get a great early days story with usually Batman, but it can happen with any hero, because there's something really interesting to like telling the story of how these characters encountered these villains for the first time, especially these characters who have been around for so long that you kind of have to go back to at least the Silver Age for a lot of the first encounters, if not the Golden Age. And comics were very different back then. It's really cool to get like a modern, well-written take on how the first time Batman encounters Clayface is. And this moment here, when he goes to like grab him, and he's wearing this mask that he's got on over his face, and he just starts oozing clay out of the eye holes and around the mask. It is like a classic horror movie visual. It's gorgeous.
Well, and the way that he drops it onto Bruce too, it looks, you know, like Bruce's entire upper torso is covered by it. Yeah. You know, on that next one. Yeah, it's very gross.
And he's like, it's not even like warm. It feels like clay. And, you know, so he's just kind of putting it together. But meanwhile, Robin has spotted some criminals, to be fair, the criminals spotted Robin first. And said, hey, he's on his own. Let's take him. We can take him back to Grimaldi. So Robin does kind of fall for the trap and tries to like grab them. And does a pretty good job though, where he's like, oh, this was a trap. I'm still going to beat you guys up because I'm Robin. But there's more of them lying in wait. They've really tried to prepare for this, and ultimately his attempts are futile, and he gets hit in the back of the head with a bat and gets knocked out. So it's again really fun art here. The panels, there's a lot of like angled panels to give you a sense of like the high energy of like Dick flipping around and jumping and kicking and all that. It does a really good job of emulating that in the style. So yeah, that happens. We go back to the Batman Clayface stuff, and Clayface just like sort of like, you know, he keeps oozing more and more until he's like going into a puddle, and then but he's still kind of got like a core shape of a human, right? That's still grabbing Batman. So Batman's like ditch effort here is that he grabs the line to the Batarang that was on the floor and just like yanks it up, and it splits Clayface in two. So we get another great like horror movie visual of like Clayface split into two halves. It's so
from
good.
The top down.
Yeah, it's what's so good about it is that this is allowing Batman to do things that are kind of really violent without it having any consequences, because it's Clayface and he's just like he's like putty. It doesn't matter.
Right. The first one with the foot was by accident, right? He's trying to trip him up. This one was how do you cut clay? Oh, with a wire, right? And that's effectively what he does.
But they do the classic horror movie thing where when Batman turns around after he's been you know dealing with stuff, Clayface is just gone. You know, he's vanished. So really cool. I love how they've like the reveal that Clayface is involved at the end of like issue 1 or 2, whatever that was so exciting, and then everything they've done so far with like Batman encountering him, I think has been really, really cool. So I really liked all this stuff in the issue. Of course, eventually he talks to Alfred and is like, wait, what did you want me for? It's like, oh yeah, Robin's been taken. So the final page is Robin's with Grimraldi, and he's obviously he's got a bit of a mouth on him because he's Robin, and Grimraldi's like, you know what? You're lucky I don't hurt children. However, I don't mind using them as bait on a hook. So now you could of course read that as he's going to literally like feed them to a shark. I think that what he's actually saying though is that he's going to use them as bait for the Batman.
Well, yeah, and I like that it shows that Grimaldi's different, right? Is that it's kind of like in The Godfather where they say that, you know, they're going to sell drugs to kids. Kids are innocent, you know? And it's like here, he's like, yeah, you're a kid, you've been a thorn on my side. I'm not going to hurt you, but you do have a value, right? And he's going to use them to lure Batman out. So I do like it shows that he does have some morals, which, you know, in Gotham is quite different for the criminals.
Yeah, no, I think it's fun. Because what I like about this is that, you know, Bruce and Dick's relationship's kind of strained at the minute because of the school stuff and everything that they've been going through. And I like here that we get the 1-2 punch of Batman's concerned about him, so he wants to come and save him, but also this entire situation's only happened because Dick did something stupid and got himself caught. So it's his fault, and that's going to further strain the relationship. So be very curious to see how that plays out over the next issue or two.
Yeah. And all the stuff with Alfred too, like Alfred, I feel like Alfred's gonna have to step in here and teach Bruce how to parent. You know? Because there's that whole thing where he's like, did you just use Wayne as a verb? And it's Alfred getting progressively more irritated with Bruce as this goes, because he's not thinking like he has this kid he needs to take care of too.
The context for that line, because we mentioned it a couple of times, is that basically Bruce says that he had to Wayne the principal to make sure this didn't go on his permanent record. So, yes. Now, whether that means paying him or just having the Bruce Wayne charm, open to interpretation, but...
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, one of those. All right, what are you giving Batman and Robin Year 1, Issue 5?
I'm going to give this a 9. A lot of 9s this week.
9.5.
Ooh, look at that.
I loved it. Everything with his first encounter with Clayface was great. The relationship with Dick and Batman's great. Cliffhanger solid. Yeah, I have nothing. And Samnee's art is just, you know,
top notch.
Yeah, it's gorgeous throughout. Super noir. You know, that final page where it's just all the blinds behind him as he's looking down at Dick. Just, you know, oozing atmosphere. All the monster stuff with Clayface is great. Yeah, just it's great. So, all right. The question, all along the Watchtower, issue 4, Alex Segura with Cian Tormey and Raul Fernández on the art. Or sorry, Raul Fernández on art. I dropped this, so Matt, you
smartly.
You tell us what's up.
Look, I have a bit of a soft spot for Hank Henshaw. Cyborg Superman stuff I always kind of like because he is the anti-Superman in that he was a human and now he's become kind of this monster that now is gonna, you know, control technology and manipulate people and whatever. But he uses the face of Superman to do everything. At the end of that Waid story that we got in action, we got the tease, right, of Cyborg Superman, and I thought it was gonna take a while to get there. And it's not. It was clearly set up for this, you know, story. Or I don't know if Waid wanted to do something where, like, because in here, Cyborg Superman manifests from the Phantom Zone, but because of him manifesting on the way out through the Watchtower tech, he can take full control of the Watchtower. So not only does he jump through the technology and stuff, he can control the like hallways and metal as if they're alive, which is very weird. And so this issue is a lot of our heroes of Batwoman and Question and Animal Man running through the Watchtower, trying not to get caught, right, by these living walls and whatnot. In Question doubting herself for not catching this sooner, as if she had any idea, because nobody, even the Justice League, didn't have any idea. And at a certain point, Batwoman tells her that. It's like, no, Batman put you in this because you're the type of person, or Batman asked you to become, you know, essentially the sheriff of the Watchtower, because you're the type of person that can figure this stuff out. it even, took Batman by surprise, so don't feel bad. If it sounds like it didn't come out as bad, it's because the summary, like there are ideas here that are solid. It's the execution of them in the story. It just made it not a fun read. Part of this is expectations on my part, as I wanted a question book where she's the sheriff to be this kind of noir book as she's investigating these weird things. And right now it's just a typical superhero book.
That's why I dropped it after issue 2 or 3, whatever it was.
I want to see where it was going to go, and so it goes to a place where it's just more of that same, And Cyborg Superman here also develops because of the Phantom Zone, him manifesting through the technology and making his way out. He's also able to for a short time possess people's minds and do like this light mind control. And in fact, that's how he got Kate. That's how he got Animal Man. And it's a constant, and it's how he has Nightshade here. And it's how he's a constant threat for them because they can't really sneak up on him, right? Because he is everywhere and all encompassing. And it takes, Renee and all of them up towards the end to kind of sneak through the back channels, to get a drop on him. It doesn't end up well, right? He ends up turning everything on them, and he's going to destroy the Watchtower through a self-destruct sequence after picking them off one by one. And I'm like, this is just superhero stuff, man. Like, this is not the noir question that I wanted. This is, it's not even interesting Cyborg Superman to play with that. So this is going to be my getting off point too, because, just they never really explain him making his way out of the Phantom Zone outside of once they reinstituted the essentially the projector in there. He was able to use that technology to tie into the Watchtower, and it's just it's like, okay, it's not even an interesting way to get there. So I'm gonna give this a 5.5 because the art's just it's fine. Nothing there. It's just the story, though. Big letdown. So there's mine.
Are you dropping it?
Yeah, this might get off point. I just, unless I hear better things later, like it rounds into kind of something more that I would want. But on a week where I have this many books,
Zatanna, issue 1, Jamal Campbell writing and also doing art. In fact, he's known more for art, actually. It's the writing that's the surprising part.
And there might be a reason for that.
I mean, okay,
That's too harsh.
I didn't think that the writing was bad, in the sense of the dialogue was fine. It wasn't like a short read or anything like that. I did not really like this book though. And I will say that for me, it's maybe a bit more of a personal taste thing, but I do not like that this just kind of very, very quickly had lots of like big, crazy magic stuff happening. And I know that sounds like a weird complaint because it's a Zatanna book, but, like by about a third of the way into this issue, we've got characters just randomly being pulled into paintings that lead them into like the astral plane, and they're in different like universes or different like pocket dimensions that are all based on different like movies or old like plays or whatever, and Zatanna has to go around and collect all of her crew for her new magic show that have all been kidnapped this way by the lady, the white lady, the ghost, whatever she is,
the Lady White,
there you go. Right. Yep. And all of this just kind of felt so quick to me that is like, okay, this book just wants to jump in at the deep end and do crazy things because that's clearly what Campbell wants to do, which is fair enough. But when it comes to magic, I need it to be a bit more grounded. I want to build up to it. I want the magic to feel like it's difficult and hard and that it's got stakes. And this just felt so flippant, and we can just jump around, do whatever we want at any time, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. Add on to that, all the backwards talk. Too much of it, okay?
So much of it. And then in order to get context, you have to read it backwards, which then slows you down, I will say, I do love Zatanna as an idea. I just, every time I've read a solo series of hers, it tends to fall flat because she is kind of that. Well, if she can say anything backwards and that's how she manifests magic, then what are the limits here? And I just felt like here we're supposed to believe this Lady White is like this big bad that's going to give her problems, and I don't feel like there's anything Zatanna can't do, right? That said, Jamal Campbell has some fun with it, because like when Lady White covers her mouth and prevents her from saying things backwards, she uses sign language. Zatanna does. I thought that was pretty cool. You know?
There's a whole page at the start where it's like a fairy tale book, and it's like, oh, there was this like princess who had a shadow self, and then the shadow was given life. And I'm like, I given that Zatanna is usually dressed in black and the lady in white is in white, whether or not they're literally meant to be these characters in a backstory of some sort, or it's just a thematic kind of, this is kind of like a representation thing. Obviously, I feel that that's intentional, of course.
Well, and you have a lot of black and white, a lot of iconography at play here. Like when she clashes with the sword guy, right? She's all in black. He's done all up in white, you know. And there's a couple of those throughout. We get, I think the layouts are super cool. Campbell's having a lot of fun with that.
I mean, Campbell's art is great, right? Because his art is just generally very good.
I just mean, even for telling the story, right? So she has to go get her crew out from all of these different movies that the Lady White starred in, because we find out that the Lady White was this person that popped up in old Hollywood and seemed to be like in everything. She was a dancer, an actress,
and this is why all the little pocket dimensions they've all went to are all based on stuff she was in. So you get like a noir looking detective-y movie, you get a sci-fi one, you get like a musical number one,
a race car one, a pirate looking one.
This is the thing, she's going around like collecting all of her crew, but this is issue 1, and we've barely, like, the only one that's had any time to get to know is the one who turns out to be a villain at the end. Yeah. Right? Everyone else that she saves are like, these are red shirts. I don't know who these people are. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, and the one crew lady that, is her her technical director that's responsible for the harness and stuff. She gets a name, but I don't remember what the name is. But I remember that moment, so there's nothing else that draws these characters to make them identifiable. Right? We're just, we care because they're on Zatanna's crew. Yeah. Like you said, it's kind of red shirty.
I guess the simplest way to phrase what I didn't like about this is that it rushes into something big far too quick. I think this had to be a more down-to-earth issue, introducing the various crew members, let us get to know the supporting cast, and tease that something big is coming. Yeah. I don't think this being pulled into the paintings nonsense should have happened until at least issue 3.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that they set up Lady White because the theater that she's performing in San Francisco, that she's going to make this big magic show that's kind of a Cirque du Soleil meets a modern magic thing. The Lady White had performed there with a bunch of these other big names from the past or whatever. So I thought we'd be seeding to Lady White. I didn't expect to get her first issue. Yeah. So, the pacing's really off.
Yeah, it just feels too much too soon, and the effect of that is I don't care about any of it. It just feels like a bunch of noise. So, like, I knew halfway through this issue I wasn't going to read issue 2, but I finished it so I could talk about it. The big ending is when she's like talking to the white lady, or Lady White, whatever stupid name is. She's like, "Why did you do all this? Why did you set all this stuff up?" And she's like, "So I could see the look in your face at this moment." And that's when the flaming sword comes through her back, and the guy who was working with her, who was nervous, has done this. And now, admittedly, is he actually evil? Has he just been possessed, taken out, whatever? I don't know. But like the big cliffhanger is her lying there with a flaming sword. Well, I say flaming, it's like molten hot sword,
glowing.
Yeah. And even the title of the arc and the to be continued are backwards, which for me was just the final FU. I'm not reading issue 2.
You know what? I thought of you when that happened. I go, oh, Pete's gonna be loving this. I just know it.
Like, they love doing the backward speak for Zatanna. Yep. They love doing the Bizarro speak for Bizarro. Yes. And frankly, it's just annoying to read. I hate it.
Yeah. And it's a lot here because I feel like once they get pulled into the painting, every single thing that Zatanna says is backwards. Because she's in action, you know. Um,
Yeah, because there's that
yeah,
page, which is a good page art-wise, because it's the page
yeah,
where it's like the 5 different worlds they've all been pulled
yeah.
into, and she's in the middle, and it's kind of like, hey, this is
Hmm.
where she's going to have to go. And like every single panel has a bubble of her saying something backwards. And
Yes.
there's a certain point where I said, I don't care what she says here, I'm going to the next page.
Yeah. Um, there was a bit when they go into the Noir universe to save that Adam kid, the one that stabs her,
Yes.
and she's like she's tired of hearing the narration in the Noir, and I thought, oh wow, that's pretty. That's how I feel right now with the
Yeah.
backward stuff. So good on you, Campbell.
Yeah, no, I like the narration in the noir world because they had it in like a sort of typewriter font,
Yeah.
and the boxes at the top, and I thought that was a really neat way of making it feel different to everything else.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, there's some nice touches, and the art is generally very good. I just
Yeah.
I just think on the conceptual level, I think this is just
Yeah.
not written for me.
Yeah. And I see that.
So there you go. Have at
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
Yeah. What are you rating Zatanna, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Very positive. I'm going.
I didn't dislike it as much as you. I will say that
Yeah.
it's definitely flawed, though.
I mean, yeah, I like this less than like World's Finest, so I got to go at the highest at 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that some people like this book. Like I saw people praise it, some people praising it during the week. If you loved it, great. You get enjoy your miniseries. I have no ill will towards it. Other than I had to read it, so I complained about it. But like, I have no ill will of it existing. I'm just happy that I now know I don't have to read the rest of them, and life can move on. So cool. All right. Jenny Sparks, issue 7, Tom King writing with Jeff Spokes on the art. Well, this will be an interesting conversation, if nothing else, because we've been a little bit more lukewarm in the last couple of issues of this. But it is a Tom King book, so it's got a lot of things going on. This issue does away with the flashbacks, which, to be fair, I'm not surprised, because issue 1 didn't have them either. It feels like a bookend thing to just focus on the here and now for this book. But all the middle issues had the flashbacks to different political or not even political, but just worldwide events that are notable.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's effectively mostly at the bar, Jenny talking to Captain Atom, and the dance continuing, and the big real beats being all of the characters. Because the end of the last issue, of course, is that he made the world disappear outside the bar. It's just a white void outside the door. And the characters, the hostages, realize, wait a minute, did you just kill everyone we care about? You know, the bartender's like, did you just kill my dog? And this realization kind of like gets people heated, various things. And basically all the hostages kind of defy Captain Atom over the course of several pages, where they kind of start to not give a shit about what he'll do to them. And Captain Atom's confused why they're not being thankful because he saved them. Everyone else is dead. But all they care about is the fact that they've lost everyone they care about, which makes sense to us, makes sense to just about anyone but Captain Atom, who thinks you should be thanking me because I'm your god and I saved you. So, yeah, and then finally Jenny, because he kills them all. He kills all the hostages. We see them all like burning as skeletons. And then Jenny kind of just says, okay, when are you going to kill me? And he's like, soon. And she kind of goads him into it, to the point where, you know, she even sort of says she's too much of a coward to just walk out into the void and die. But he does ultimately kill her, right? There's a whole big moment where she keeps talking about this this woman, Virginia Woolf, from like World War II, and how she ended up killing herself because she couldn't go through another disaster like that, and you know, she couldn't fight the tide. And Jenny used to think, oh, but the tide, like, we won. We beat the tide that time. But she's over the century since then almost, she's realised, oh no, she was kind of right. The tide wasn't stopping. The tide was always going to keep coming. And yes, obviously what King's talking about here is that, yeah, fascism's still a thing, right? Like, you know, the struggle that people felt back then is something that we're still kind of dealing with in different ways, right? And hopefully it's never the exact same way, right? Hopefully it never comes to that, but we're still kind of dealing with some of the ideas of that, if nothing else. And he kills her. He kills Jenny. He kind of stands there, not really sure what to do. and then he kind of like snickers and says, "I see," and snaps his fingers, and all of a sudden the Justice League are back. Jenny's back, and like all the world's back to normal. The hostages are fine, and she kind of has to explain to the Justice League as we see all these hostages go back to their lives and like make changes in their lives. And the ultimate sentiment of the book is that Captain Atom realized that he could keep rebuilding the world as many times as he wanted, but the only thing that he really has control over, whether he likes to admit it or not, is himself, and whether or not he can change, because he can't just change the world. And it kind of mirrors what a lot of the hostages go through, where they all make improvements in themselves. The woman who is in the affair is going to tell her husband, right? That's implied that she's going to do that. The guy who's the drunk goes back and pays off his tab at a bar, but doesn't get a drink, so on and so forth. They're making improvements. Even Captain Atom is going back to the hospital to make improvements. But, I think there's like a mental health message here, if nothing else, that King's trying to get across about, like, try and make yourself better, be better for yourself, be better for you, and improve and understand where you've went wrong. Because you can't really, like, fix the world by yourself. You're not going to do that. Nothing wrong with that message, and I think the lack of the flashback that's like specifically a political event or whatever, which is super on the nose, I think does benefit this issue, because those were the things that were starting to feel a bit too, whatever. I think those last few issues we were really starting to feel like it's a bit weird that they're talking about COVID, it's a bit weird that they're talking about Trump. So I do think this issue is a little bit better than those last couple. Overall, though, I do feel a little bit lukewarm on this series as a whole. It's...
I still don't get what the 20th century has to do with, you know what I mean? With a lot of this, right? I get the whole point of... Oh,
no, I get that. Because I always got it. Because as soon as I started talking about that back in like issue 2 or 3, I got that.
Yeah.
Right?
And I thought by issue 7 it would make sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense about it.
Well, no. For me here, it's... I get the whole... The tide has come back around. And that stuff, and it's just maybe it's just my lack of the stuff with Jenny Sparks. I just there was a lot said here that I don't feel landed for me, and like there was a whole bunch that I'm sitting here. This took me many tries to get through. Part of the reason I got annoyed right, because sitting down trying to focus to read it, and there's a whole bunch that does that King thing where there's just so much dialogue on the page, and it felt like at a point I was just reading a textbook and it wasn't connecting. And I didn't this issue I didn't have anything that I could tie it to, The last part when it gets to the hostages returning to their lives, I really liked all that stuff. Stuff really landed. But a lot of the Captain Atom and Jenny stuff and
but you're moving away from what you said before, which is what I was actually trying to ask about, which is the 20th century thing. Like for me, as soon as that was brought up, all that was getting at was this idea, the end of the century, right, the 90s, and maybe this just kind of works for us because we were all kids at that time, so the world felt like fixed at that point. But this idea that the world felt it was in a better place, that we were so far removed from the bad things of World War II, and things were generally feeling like they were getting better in a lot of ways. At least to some extent, it felt that. And it feels like things have gotten worse this century. Just like we've been on this kind of slide ever since. And maybe it's the danger of nostalgia of thinking that last century was just better by the end and that we're plummeting. I think all the stuff about Jenny's century, she thought she could rest, but she had to come back. And the 20th century, the specter of it still lingering. I think to me all that thematically made sense, and that was some of the stuff that I liked early on in the book. I do agree though that a lot of the Jenny Captain Atom back and forth this issue wasn't quite clicking for me. That I absolutely agree with, because I think it's one of those things where to be fair, King has far more hits with me now than misses, right? Let's make this clear. I have loved the vast majority of what I've read from King at DC at this point. A couple of notable exceptions, but for the most part, I've loved his stuff, and not just liked it. It's like the best book coming out when they're coming out often. So I do not want this to be shade on Tom King in general, but I think this book for us, as we were getting towards the back half of it, one, it felt like the central story in the bar was a little too like one note, and the flashbacks, which were kind of the bulk of the book at a certain point, were just getting just too weirdly like real world. Like, it was just actual events from recent history. Just felt very strange to me. So all of this theorizing about what a god is just felt a little bit, I don't want to say pretentious.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a harsh word.
What are you going to use? You know?
But it definitely felt a little bit like, oh, like we're trying to make a point here, and we're trying to talk around it a little bit by sort of talking about how, because I think Captain Atom in a lot of way represents frustrations that we all have, and that we want to like take control and realizing that we can, right? I think like that's the weird thing here. I don't think Captain Atom represents some powerful figure. I think he represents us, like, and how each of us feel, and how at a certain point we want to just like destroy everything around us because, like, you know, or whatever. Like, you know, it's about that feeling of like, oh, like we're in a place where there's no hope and we can't fix anything, and you know, or that initially leads to him wanting to just like force it and like take control of everything. But then even that doesn't work. So I get the broad ideas and themes that King is hitting here. But I think part of it is that maybe I never truly like fell in love with the character of Jenny, because I don't have any attachment to her. So like her whole thing about wanting a light, and then at the end saying, "Oh, sometimes you have to find your own," that felt a little bit like hokey and on the nose to me, because I'm like, oh, all right, sure, like I get it. You know? Yeah,
I think a lot of it is the Jenny character too. You know, that I don't have anything to attach to, so you know, and that makes it kind of tough to read through. I didn't think about the Captain Atom stuff like that it was representing kind of our frustrations with everything. And going back and seeing that, and maybe that's why we don't attach to Jenny as much, because we're supposed to be attaching more to Captain Atom in that experience. But if that's the case, then what's with all the flashbacks with Jenny going through all the traumatic stuff that we experienced the last 25 years?
No, I mean, I think you're supposed to still like sympathize with her side of it. I don't think it's meant to be a one-sided thing at all.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating, because like there's no reason, because again, this is another thing that King has done repeatedly. He has taken characters I've known little about or cared little about and made me care about them. So this is not a problem of just not knowing the history of Jenny Sparks.
Yeah.
Like King, like the assumption is that King would make us care because he's proven that he can do that multiple times. So that is a failure of the book. It's not like a broad thing where you're saying, oh, like, you know, you can't like a book with a character in it if you don't already know the character. That's ridiculous. Like, you have to start somewhere. The character has to like make you like them at some point. And I just don't think this book is, and that's the thing, is people who do know Jenny Sparks seem to hate this book right away.
Yeah.
So it's not even like it was working for them either, because apparently she's not, you know, exactly like she was back in the day. So yeah, definitely mixed. I think there's some good craft happening here, right? For sure. There's some decent art.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, once she, you know, goes out and, you know, she goes to the door and everything's all white and everything, that looks really cool, because up to that point we've had these split up panels, you know, done along the line. So to see just this big, huge image of just nothing, and it really makes that stand up. And then when we get to all the hostages, and it's 5 panels across or down.
Yeah.
In each page, it progresses a little bit more. I thought that was all handled really well. And
I think that mirrors issue 1. I want to say there was a lot of issue 1 where it was like they each had like a row in each page for several pages. I think that was like a way they were doing it.
You know, so again, the craft's there. I just the message, I guess, there just didn't land throughout. So, you know, which is kind of frustrating.
Well, I think the message is fine in terms of what the message is. It's just that the writing didn't make it hit. So, yeah. It's a shame that this is the one that's so mixed, but hey, luckily Wonder Woman is on fire, and Black Canary mini's doing great so far. So, I mean, like, hey,
for sure,
once in a while there'll be maybe one that doesn't quite work, and I mean, that's fine.
You brought up about him doing characters that we know next to nothing about. I mean, that's all Danger Street was.
Yeah, Danger Street was like 10 of them, and I cared about all of them by the end.
Exactly. And then stuff with Human Target. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Human Target's a good example. Yeah,
we're familiar with, but Christopher Chance we're not. And then we ended up really caring about Christopher Chance and what he went through.
And while, I knew who Mr. Miracle and Adam Strange were, I definitely cared more about those characters a lot more by the end of those books than I did before I read them.
Yes. So, so it's not even that. It's just, this book was just kind of, okay, as we went. Because I was much more high on it through the first 2 issues. And then as we started going...
Issue 1 was so good. Like the way it built to the hostage situation in issue 1 was spectacular, and then it was like, okay, we're in this bar now and I'm not against the idea of being in the bar for the rest of the arc. I love something that's like a 12 Angry Men. Give me 12 Angry Men in a comic book. I'll be into it.
But you can't aimlessly do things. Like it felt like it was meandering at points.
Yes.
We have to have a clear and the interactions between everybody need to make sense and all that other stuff. And I just kind of felt we were floating along in the bar, almost killing time.
Yeah, I would have much preferred, like, if they'd just done, like, okay, raise the debate and then have these hostages with Captain Atom and maybe Jenny, since she's technically the main character. Like, have them just debate and, like, try and bring arguments for and against for why he's a god or isn't a god, or why there should be a god or there shouldn't be a god, whatever the debate would be, and do a 12 Angry Men style story. Instead, it felt like a lot of the stuff in the bar was like avoiding saying things for like a good number of issues, and I think that really hurt that side of it. So, it's a shame. What are you giving Jenny Sparks issue 7, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 6.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. There's some good things in it, but I definitely feel very lukewarm about this issue overall.
Yeah.
So, while I said I preferred it to the last couple, I think I've rated it lower, but I think that's just because my opinion of the book as a whole now is kind of
you can put
place.
that you can put that into focus more.
Yeah.
So reading this and then World's Finest and then The Question, just bang bang bang. I was like, please pick up. And then I got to Nightwing.
Yeah, but then the rest of the books were good. So
and then I got to Nightwing, and then the one dip was maybe Zatanna, but I still kind of enjoyed it. So. It was a rough starting. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I read 7 new books and 4 of them were excellent. So, I mean, I was doing fine.
That's a great average.
Yeah. So yes, one more book technically every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. One of the higher tiers, you can make me read a book of your choosing. Today I'm looking at Batman and the Outsiders issue 22. Which is The Truth About Halo Part 3. And oh boy, this was an interesting one to land the same like episode as New Gods, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Just not so you'll see what I mean when I explain some of this. So right. So the story starts off and they're on the Watchtower, right? And it's all wrecked. Now, so I don't know what this is tying into. There's no like editor's note. I assume there's like an event or like a storyline going on in another book that's caused this damage. But Batman's there with the Outsiders and he's like, those fools, I told them never to build a base up in space. We were so far away from the people we were to protect, the criminals to catch. And it's basically just Batman being a little, honestly, he's been a bit whiny about the Justice League and complaining to the Outsiders that like, you're my new tools against the war on crime and blah blah blah. And I think like Geoforce or someone leans over and says, hey, now it's Metamorpho was like, hey, Black Lightning, do you feel good about just being a weapon for Batman to use? And Black Lightning's like, no, not really, but maybe now's not the time. Like he's in a bit of a mood. let's just let this play out. And Batman's looking longingly at like a picture of the Justice League when they formed. It's like, oh, we're so young and idyllic and like blah blah blah. Anyway, so this is all entertaining, but of course I was thinking reading all this like, okay, but how is this going to be the end of the Halo like reveal? Like, how are we doing that?
Yeah.
And it turns out the reason why they're here, and they've got Dr. Jace with them, is that there's like a MRI style looking thing that they can put her into up here to like look at some stuff on her, like see if she's got any like particles or whatever that are alien, blah blah blah. And she's really sad. She's like, don't call me Gabrielle Katana because I'm Violet and I murdered a boy, and even though I don't remember it, and she's all moody about like what she thinks she done as Violet.
Mm-hmm.
But then they get to the interesting stuff, right? The Black Lightning uses his power to give the station power again so that they can get this machine fired up. And they're looking at the particles and whatnot. And basically this just works, where Halo kind of like wakes up and comes out of the machine, sort of screams a little bit, and she's like, I remember. Like, I kind of know what I was. And the weird thing is that I was basically kind of right when I said, oh, I think that she's some kind of alien thing that's using the body of, basically this girl died, did all these bad things, and then Halo, whatever her entity is, took over her body. That part was effectively true, and that is kind of what we find out. In a weird way, though, the way she talks about how she wasn't really a life form before, it kind of makes me think, of all things, of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, of the Key, and how the Key became a human being and effectively existed before then, but wasn't really a living person before then. So, like, the life that Halo isn't like invalid. Like, she's like, who she is now effectively started when she woke up in issue 1 of this book, but there is kind of this existence that existed beforehand that she was. So she starts to explain it, right? And she talks about the oracles. Now, Katana says oracles, and Katana spells it in her speech bubble as, like multiple Barbara Gordons. Oracles, right? No, it's Aurakles, right? Although I assume it's pronounced the same, or at least similar, right? Oracles, I don't know, right? And she's like, oracles, the first of us were created before time began. And there wasn't anything. And she basically starts talking about the source. And the source was just this ball, right? Nothing existed except the source. But then some unknown force collided with the source, and it burst open and all these like entities came flooding out, all the source energy came flooding out and created everything, right? The multiverse, the universe as we know it, whatever, was created.
The Big Bang, for lack of a better term.
Basically, yeah. It just accept the source is DC's thing of what reality is. And these like glowing like orbs that have colors in them, kind of like the colors that Halo's color scheme is. I mean, they all have different color schemes, but hers would be the one she has. Are all kind of floating, and they basically just witness the universe form and see planets that have come out of the source. Witness creatures that are coming, and she explains that the oracles, once they have too much knowledge, because all they do is observe and gain knowledge, once they have too much, they'll split in two to sort of be able to keep amassing more knowledge. And what made her different to the rest of them to some extent is that they were all concerned with the planets forming and space and all that kind of thing. Whereas Halo was more interested in the beings, like the life forms, the organic life, and would sort of monitor that. And it existed. So she's a newer oracle in the sense that she didn't be created until after everything started, but she was around for at least centuries before becoming human. And she's like, yep, this Violet woman, did all these bad things, was in oh god, where's Brian from?
Markovia?
Thank you, Markovia. I was trying to remember the goddamn name of the country. She's in Markovia. The assassin kills her, and she says, "Oh, because of I don't know why it happened. Now all the planets were in alignment, so maybe that's why, right? Yeah. To some cosmic reason, but because of whatever, like." The orb, like her, came in and felt bad for this dead girl, and somehow her entity, her essence, went into her, and then she woke up by Batman, and that's where we started off with Halo in the book. And she's like, that's why I don't have a photographic memory. That's why I don't remember anything Violet did. Is because I'm not her. I'm just using her body. And she's kind of, and actually. Probably so all this stuff was kind of interesting, and it was kind of wild that we're talking about sources, the source wall, and the source energy, like making the universe, and the same week that I'm reading about like all this early backstory of like various gods and the second world and all that. But what the moment here where she kind of like sums this up, there's a series of 3 panels where we're sort of behind her and we're looking at the reaction of all the other characters, and they all just look like shocked, and she says, well, and they're all just like wide-eyed and don't know, and some of them start looking away because they're kind of like don't know how to like respond to her. And then Batman says, Halo, you've been under a lot of stress lately. And I don't know, I got a good chuckle out of their reactions and not really knowing how to process how big this sounds, because this is kind of big. She's basically like a living entity that's been around for like a long time, and like, you know, this is even bigger arguably than being an alien, right? There's more to it than that. So yeah, and she's like, yeah, it feels strange and whatever, like, you know, before I woke up in this body, I wasn't like alive. You know, I was immortal, I wouldn't die, but now I'll die someday. I wasn't a gender, like, you know, I was asexual, but now I'm a woman. Like, you know, that's new, and I'm dealing with that. Like, you know, she's really going through this turmoil, and Batman turns to Dr. Jace and says, hey, maybe you should give her a sedative, and she's like, I agree. Right, but before they do that,
hysterical.
I know, but before they do that, Katana tries to talk to her, and you know, she's like, oh, you don't believe me, Katana, and she's like, and Katana notices in her eyes, her eyeballs have turned into the color of her orb, right, or like her irises, and she's like, what's wrong? And just as she says that, a bunch of these entities, these oracle orbs, show up, and they speak, right? There's like a kind of speech bubble within their orbs, so it's kind of like a unique lettering style. And it's like, hey, errant one, you have, you know, like, you know, we've found you because you've like, basically it's like her like reconnecting to everything, remembering everything, sort of like gave them like a signal of where to come and find her. And they're like, hey, you need to come back. You don't belong with these flesh people. Like, you have to come back with the general, because basically they feel like part of them is missing because she has some of the knowledge that they're all amassing or whatever. And she's insisting that she come, and she doesn't really want to. You know, and there's a kind of a nice moment here where Batman steps in and starts talking to them, and is like, you know, but she said she doesn't want to, and Halo says no, and Batman looks up kind of defiantly and says, there's your answer. And it kind of feels nice, because we go from this moment where they're all really not sure how to process what Halo just told them, and maybe even don't quite believe her because it's so like big and far-fetched and like otherworldly. But then you get this moment where like the rest of these oracles show up to try and take her, and the outsiders are ready to fight to try and like keep her. So it feels like they're all showing that they care about her, regardless of, you know, like, forget if they believed you or not a minute ago. They're all willing to like stand up and try and fight for you. So yeah, but like, hey, the errant one's like merely an individual, but you know, they must bow to that of the collective unity. And yeah, so there's a bit of a fight almost. Like, Katana gets her swords electrified by black lightning, and they throw them at one of the orbs to see what happens, and it just kind of disappears. Like, why would it hurt it? You know, it's hard to say. So they start blasting some of the computers in the Watchtower, say, we'll take away your technology and we'll do this, we'll do that. Your resistance is infuriating. I thought that was a funny line, actually. But yeah, they do feel otherworldly. They don't feel like people. They don't feel like, you know, aliens are just mad. But, you know, the outsiders try and fight back. Geoforce tries to, you know, use his powers on them. Metamorpho does a pretty decent job by like confusing their beams that are firing at them, because he turns into like a cloud of like carbon or whatever. Was it? Yeah, powdered carbon, which whatever. But yeah, so yeah, all goes bad though, because the blasts end up hitting the side of the Watchtower and like, you know, creates a big hole into space. So some of them are able to like stay inside. Geoforce has to go and save the others that have fallen out, and there's a little like thought bubble where he's like, Dr. Jace once told me that a human can survive to up to 10 seconds in a vacuum of space. Let's try and not push that limit. Whereas Metamorpho has to like cover the hole, so Metamorpho just becomes a big sheet of metal, but has to open up like a big mouth to let them back inside. It's an insane visual, to be fair. Like, it's a pretty fun just wacky visual despite all the crazy like action that's going on here. So Halo gets taken by these things, these entities, the oracles take her away as she cries out saying help me, as she fades away into like a sort of like beam of light. In fact, there's a nice little detail about her existence actually earlier where she said that Dr. Light was able to affect her really easily back in like issue 3, and she basically says the reason why she was able to affect her is because effectively Halo's being is all light. Like, she comes from like a light being of sorts. The cliffhanger is that Halo's gone, and Katana makes a vow, we're going to find her no matter what, and Black Lightning says, yeah, I'm with you. And they're like, but how? Like, how do we even like search for these beings? And that's where it leaves off. It says, next time, the search for Halo. So, yeah, honestly, really cool. Like, to give it credit, I made a pretty reasonable guess as to what Halo was. Mm-hmm. And it was somewhat right to an extent about how, she's not really the person, she's just using the body. She's from somewhere else. But it still managed to give me a lot of unique things that I didn't predict. Like the idea that she's a being that predates the creation of the multiverse, or well, maybe not her specifically, but she's one of these beings that actually predate the creation of the multiverse, and that like she is like the key from Buffy. That is the main thing I kept thinking about when they started talking about how she kind of like processes the fact that she wasn't a person before. Because when she describes all this stuff, it doesn't really sound like she has memories in the traditional sense. It's not like she had like a life before she became Halo. It's more like just a state of being she had. It feels like truly alien in that respect. So it was genuinely quite interesting. I think there was some spins on it that enhanced, even though I got some things right. And then the fact that, okay, this is a very formidable foe. How are we going to find her and how are we going to keep her on the team after this? Mm-hmm. And it feels like the team fighting for her. There's a lot of heart in that because they're fighting to get their teammate back. So at this point, we've built up some camaraderie with the teammates and we care about the characters. So that was very good. I liked it a lot. Yeah. It's probably like a good 8.5, I think. So.
The oracles almost sound like monitors.
They're a little monitory. Yeah, there's a bit of that. Yeah.
And this is pre-crisis too, so I wonder about how much went into the monitor concept from this.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe this became the monitors at a certain point.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking about the fact that this is pre-crisis. You're right.
So I was just thinking when they said that they watch things, and she got very interested in beings. So yeah, very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, we're in summer at 85 with these issues now, so we must be getting close to crisis.
Yeah. So I think crisis started in the end of 85.
Yeah, because I want to say 86 is what I think
the
of.
The majority
of
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So I remember the Monitors' first appearance was in Teen Titans, and they set him up to look like a villain. So, but yeah. And that happened in the early 80s, because that's when New Teen Titans was really, really cooking. But yeah, very, very cute. It's kind of weird, too, kind of how ahead of the curve this creative team has been.
Oh, yeah.
So.
For sure, yeah. Mike Barr and Alan Davis doing good stuff here. Yeah, honestly, I do like I love having a reason to read this for the show, just because learning some of this cool DC history is fun. It's always fun to do. So it's great having the reason. So 8.5. I really like this issue. Yeah, good stuff. Honestly, this series in a lot of ways is like almost more than the sum of its parts. And I think there's a lot of really good issues and a lot of solid issues. But I think I like the series more than I have liked any individual issue, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like I really like reading the book and I really like it as a whole, even if like I never give an issue a 10. I'm not saying the series is a 10 necessarily, but like it feels better as a whole than it does as like individually issue to issue and what it is. So. Yeah. But there you go. That is Batman and the Outsiders 22. So we will go into the final part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel/moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top 5 books of the week. So Matt, what is your panel/moment of the week?
All right, let's see. Well, New Gods had a lot because you have Federici, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also got that good Barda moment with her wrecking the truck at the end. Zatanna had some great looking panels because Jamal Campbell does that. All-Star. That's not what that book's called. Batman and Robin Year One. Yeah, a lot of Clayface stuff was paced very well and looked great. But mine's gonna be from Wonder Woman, and it's gonna be that page. It's a full page, and it's Wonder Woman staring down the front of the White House after she has crossed the National Mall, and yeah, just it's such a great image. So yeah.
Yeah. There's so many. Actually, a lot of good choices this week because Wonder Woman's got several moments that could be picked. New Gods has moments like I do like honestly that ending with Barda smashing the truck could be a contender, as could some of the backstory stuff. I think I got to go though with Batman's first encounter with Clayface, specifically when Clayface starts just oozing through the mask. I just think that's such a cool horror movie little moment that I got to pick it. But like, there was 3 or 4 books this week that I could have picked something from quite easily. So that's cool. For covers, I did have a look while you were talking about Watchtower. There's a nice Melnikov cover for Nightwing. There's actually another variant by Dan Panosian, which I kind of almost really like, but there's just something a little off about it. But I do, it's like Nightwing and Batgirl sort of standing back to back. It's just a little bit off, but I wanted to mention it because it's like close to greatness. There's also a Federici variant for New Gods with the middle god, the one that gets infected with the darkness, which I really like. But my pick of the week is going to be the Bruno Redondo variant for Batman and Robin Year One, which is it does a lot of stuff with negative black space where Batman's like cape just goes into the darkness with his cowl, and it just looks really good.
Yeah. And just the way that it perfectly bisects the bat symbol too.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one.
It's awesome. What are you picking?
All right, so that was one of my options. Was that one? I'm glad you brought it up. There is as my computer loads, because there was this Zatanna one that's not loading now that I really liked, but for since it's deciding not to load, I'm gonna skip that one. And mine's gonna be the New Gods variant for, and this is doing it now to me. But there's one with Bart on the cover, and she's smashing what looks like. She's smashing one of the parademons. So that's mine. I forget who does it. It looks. Oh, there it goes. See if I ramble enough. It's the Mike Huddleston variant. But yeah, very, very classic looking. It's got some Kirby-esque to it. There's some Kirby crackles in the background. So yeah, that one's mine.
All right. Art. that's what we're on. I have to think about that there.
Yeah, this is probably the toughest pick, I think, this week. Because you have Sempere and Wonder Woman.
This is the thing. You got Federici, right? But you do have a different artist
Cagle
as well, kind of mixed in. And it's like, and the other art is good. Yeah. But it's not Federici good. Yeah.
And it doesn't balance because they're not very complementary styles.
No.
Like, Cagle's art is still good, but Federici's so unique. Yeah,
it is separate because obviously it's backstory stuff that feels very separate, but still you have to account for it if you compare it to books where you've got Sempere in the whole book, or you've got Dexter Soy in the whole book, or Chris Samnee on the whole book. Yeah. So
and the Samnee was my other option for for Year One, and also just shouts to Jamal Campbell because at least the art in Zatanna looked fantastic. So do I go with the tried and true, or do I mix it up? Because Sempere I usually pick, but it's kind of like this was a pretty decent, pretty typical of Sempere versus Samnee, who was doing some cool stuff with the shadows. I'll give it to Samnee for Batman and Robin Year One.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I think if it was Federici on the whole issue, I think I'd be giving it to Federici. As it is, it's really between Sempere and Samnee. I think I'm going to lean to Samnee as well, but it's very close. It's very, very close. All right, top 5 books, Matt. On you go.
All right, number 1's going to be Wonder Woman. 2 is going to be New Gods. 3 is Batman and Robin Year 1. 4 is Nightwing. And 5 is Zatanna.
All right, my number 1 is Batman and Robin Year 1. My number 2, New Gods. Number 3, Wonder Woman. Number 4, Nightwing. Number 5. What are my options?
You gotta go Jenny Sparks or Zatanna.
Or World's Finest.
Or World's Finest.
I think I rated World's Finest the highest out of those.
Okay.
I guess that. Clearly, my number 5 is a bit of a whatever pick, but yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There you go. World's Finest, I guess. All right. There you go. All right, I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics then, shall I? Because we got a few things. We got Detective Comics 1094. We have Absolute Wonder Woman issue 5. We have Superman 23. Justice League Unlimited issue 4. Green Arrow 21. Green Lantern 20. Batman The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween issue 5. The Flash 18. Harley Quinn 48. Black Canary Best of the Best. Green Lantern Dark issue 3. Power Girl 18. And Metamorpho The Element Man issue 3. So, yeah, interesting batch of books there next week. I believe I have 8, and I don't know if you're reading anything else that I'm not. So
I have 9. So
wait, what are you reading that I'm not? Green Arrow?
Is it?
Oh, Power Girl.
Metamorpho. You reading Metamorpho?
I'm not reading Metamorpho, no.
Oh yeah, somebody reading Metamorpho.
And you're also reading Power Girl? Oh, then you dropped Power Girl, didn't you?
No, I dropped Power Girl.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. All right, fair enough. So yeah, healthy enough week, but not super stacked either.
I'm glad we have Absolute back because I've been feeling a void with the Absolute book without it for a week.
Oh, just in general, like any Absolute book. Okay.
Yeah, any Absolute book. Yeah.
I was going to say they've been pretty consistent monthly.
Yeah. No. We didn't have it and it felt missed.
Yeah, we're still only at 3 right now. I mean, soon though, March is launching at least 1 more, if not 2 more. So we'll have enough for every week of the month. But that is the show, everyone. That is us. Hopefully I made it through here not sounding too stupid because I have been up from very early this morning. So hopefully I kept my thoughts somewhat coherent.
I think that every time I record. Hope I made it through without sounding too dumb.
I mean, you set the bar low when we started the show, Matt, so I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Would it be like?
Anyway, everyone, that is us. Thank you very much for joining us. You can, of course, support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you can get, a little bit early access. It goes up sort of late in the night on the Saturday, if you're on there. But that is us. Check out other content that I make over at MailFuzz Movies or MailFuzz TV, the YouTube channels. There's various movie podcasts and that kind of thing. But yeah, that'll do us. Like, subscribe, all the usual things, helps us out a bunch, and we will see you next week for an episode that may include a ginger returning to the show.
Babs is not in a book next week.
Nah, that's a worse ginger.
I mean, that's Barbara Gordon's very lovable, so it could be any other ginger.
Yeah, she's
Jimmy Olsen.
She's best ginger.
I mean, her Pam, like that's not split hairs here.
Nah, I'm picking Babs over Pam. I don't have the.
Yeah, of course you are.
I don't have the Poison Ivy like perversion that you and a lot of the variant cover buyers have. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.